Oh, these aren't on. Oh my gosh. Revised.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'm
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Start with determination of quorum. Katie,
James Barnes,
here?
Sarah Chavelicek,
here.
Larry Chesney,
Here.
Without an operation.
Francine Donchik,
Here.
Philip Haran,
Here.
and Greg Pro.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Haran, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Edwards, could we have the ethics law announcement, please?
Commissioners are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the commission today, you have received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest or a commitment in a private capacity such as a family, employment, business, or similar relationship, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, or commitment at the time the matter is being considered. And you must abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it is clear that the gift, loan, interest, or commitment would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Commissioners are also reminded that, under the Planning Commission rules, if you have had any contact outside this meeting with any persons interested in a matter coming before the commission today, you should disclose the nature of that contact at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Webb, could we have the appeal procedure, please?
With pleasure. Most decisions rendered by the Planning Commission are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Planning Commission and you want to appeal its action, you may do so in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is signed by the Planning Commission Chair and/or the Secretary of the Planning Commission, filed with the Secretary of the Planning Commission, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceedings being appealed in accordance with the Washoe County Code. Please call planning staff immediately at 328-6100 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee. And for the audience and those watching this evening, all three public hearing items, items 9, A, B, and C, are appealable to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.
328-6100. Is that the number?
Katie, is there any public comment?
There is. We have John Enlow, followed by Jim Smitherman.
Would you please come forward and state your name and address?
Good evening. My name is John Enlow. I'm the Director of Natural Resources for the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. I'm here tonight I provided your secretary with some information. Jim Smitherman and I are going to be in front of this board next month on answering some of your questions with respect to some water and wastewater issues. Tonight, I just provided you with a handout of some suggested reference material. It's not a lot, it's only maybe 10 pages, something that you could easily get through, but it provides a lot of information on water rights, water resources, demand projections. There were some pointed questions on groundwater issues in Spanish Springs. There's a little bit of information there, but I was just trying to provide some of that information for you tonight as background, so when we're here next month, after you reviewed some of those reference documents, you might be able to ask more pointed, specific questions. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, would you state your name and address, please?
Yes, sir. Jim Smitherman with the Western Regional Water Commission and the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. I live at 3001 Brachetto Loop in Sparks. Just to add on to what Mr. Enlow shared with you, I also brought you a handout. It's a draft report on a water balance that's being put together for the regional water management plan that is being updated right now. It's in draft, it's in review. There's probably a few things that are going to change, but it will form the basis of the report that I bring back for you next month. So I just wanted to put it in your hands. It can be a lot to take in, so I wanted to give you a month to look at it. And I also clipped my business card to it, so if you have questions between now and then, feel free to contact me.
Thank you. Katie, any other general public comment?
We do. Bill Whitney.
Yes, Mr. Whitney, would you come forward, please? State your name and address.
Oh, good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Bill Whitney, have lived here at 9th and Wells for the last 28 years. I wanted to come here this evening to tell you in person that I have retired, and didn't want you to hear it from anybody else but me. And it might seem a little sudden to you, but it's something I've been planning on, and my superiors have been working on replacing me, and they have. So as of last Monday, Moira Huenstein, is now the Director of Planning and Development. And you're going to like Moira. She's smart, and she knows what's going on. She's been our business facilitator or coordinator for the last year here at the county, so maybe you do know her already, but you'll get to know her. So I just wanted to let you know that, and I also wanted to thank each and every one of you for your public service. It means a lot to me personally, and it means a lot to the county, and I know it means a lot to the residents of the county that you volunteer and take your valuable time to be planning commissioners. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. I know you've done
Thank you.
you've done a great job, Bill, and I think we'll do something for you at a meeting here in the near future. I know this is public comment, and we can't really
Right.
get into much discussion now, but I think we'll do something for you here more formally in the near future.
Thank you, Chairman Barnes, and I know you've got a busy agenda tonight, so I'll let you get on with it, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, any other general public comment?
No further public comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, possible action to approve agenda.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
okay. We have a motion by Sarah and a second by Francine. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the agenda is approved. Possible action to approve January 3rd, 2017 draft minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Larry, a second by Francine. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the January 3rd, 2017 draft minutes are approved. All right, let's go to item 8, planning items. And the first one is presentation on the Washoe County Regional Parks Master Plan. And Mr. Webb, could you give us a brief description of the item?
Certainly. Washoe County Regional Parks and Open Space is updating the Washoe County Regional Parks Master Plan. The presentation will discuss the update process to include developing base maps for all parks, a demographic analysis, development of a capital improvement matrix, and an analysis of investment strategies throughout the districts. In addition to these updates, the master plan process will look at the possibility of consolidating several of the 20 subdistricts into a smaller number of subdistricts to allow for more flexibility with regards to funding projects. The presentation will include the efforts and the timeline moving forward. The presenter is Mr. Dennis Troy, who's the parks planner.
Okay, Mr. Troy, would you please make your presentation?
I will, and thank you for having me here tonight, Commissioners and Chair Barnes. Again, for the record, Dennis Troy. I'm a parks planner with Washoe County Regional Parks and Open Space. So I'm going to jump right into this. Tonight, my discussion really is going to be focusing on the update of the county-wide master plan and our efforts as we're moving forward. This was something that we'd started a few years ago, and it was tabled, and it has since been resurrected. So a quick background, the county currently does not have a regional parks master plan. What we do have are several master plans for individual specific regional facilities, but not one that really takes a look at the parks throughout the county holistically. Here's just a quick breakdown of the number of parks that the county actually has within it. There's about 35 parks 35 neighborhood parks. Neighborhood parks are also inclusive of pocket parks. Those can range in size from about a quarter acre up to about 20 acres. And then also the regional parks that you'll see, we have about 10 regional park facilities that are over 20 acres. Some of them are well over 400 acres, such as Rancho San Rafael. We also have a number of special use facilities that you see, water parks, amphitheaters, archery facilities, and horse arenas. The county receives, Washoe County Regional Parks and Open Space receives its funding through the general fund, as well as grants, WC1 bond monies, which are almost exacerbated, as well as residential construction tax base. And I want to touch quickly on what residential construction tax is. It's funding that's actually collected when a new residence is constructed. When a new single-family residence is built, they contribute up to $1,000 to a specific sub-district that the county has. This map that you see in front of you is a breakdown of where the sub-districts are throughout the county. The county currently has 20 different sub-districts. So if you build a house and pull a building permit in sub-district 2A, your money specifically goes to that district. There's a wide range of balances. Some districts have over $1 million. And as of this morning, one district has $13. The county has contracted with Wood Rogers to help us facilitate this process. The process, at its initial look, is probably going to take somewhere from 6 to 9 months to go through. But there's going to be significant outreach to different user groups and also the different jurisdictions that surround us, including the city of Sparks as well as the city of Reno. Also, developers, Parks Commission, Planning Commission, Board of County Commissioners, Washoe County School District. So we're really going to stress getting that feedback from everybody. Like I said, we're going to develop a regional plan, but going a little bit more in depth, we'll be also developing PIPs, is the acronym for them, which are going to be park improvement plans for each individual park. Some of the process highlights that we're looking at is actually consolidating those sub-districts. As I said, there's some sub-districts that really only have a few dollars in it. So we're going to explore the option of actually consolidating those districts, which really allows for the flexibility of funding monies throughout the general areas. There's some sub-districts that don't have regional facilities in them, but they go to other districts to use their regional facilities. So we're going to take a closer look at possibly consolidating those. Another thing that we're going to be looking at is the surpluses and the deficiencies throughout the county. What areas are lacking parks? What areas have too many parks, if there is such thing? And so that's one of the things that we'll take a really close look at. And here's also just kind of a national standard that the national NRPA just released. And that kind of breaks down the averages for residents served as well as parkland per resident. So I'm sure everyone here is probably well aware of the most recent Truckee Meadows housing study that shows a lot of growth. The EDON numbers that have been coming out show even more growth. So one thing that we really need to do is focus on planning for this growth and really putting parks at the forefront and not making an afterthought of these. So you can see the population growth numbers up there. So the county parks operation budget is still operating at about a 60% budget reduction from 2007 to 2009. One of the things that we really are struggling with is the funding to maintain existing and new facilities. There are districts where we have funding to build a facility. We just simply don't have the staff to maintain it. So this analysis will also take a close look at that. One thing that we have done recently is we've entered in maintenance agreements with homeowners associations in areas where we do have money to build. We've actually, when we were contacted by them about improving a pocket park, we can easily provide the funding to construct it. But like I said, we've had to enter into maintenance agreements with them to actually maintain the facilities. As far as a timeline, I actually met with Wood Rogers last week. They have actually started this process and updating the base mapping. They have a lot of facilities to go through and account for. So this spring, actually right now, they're preparing the base mapping, and then they'll also be working towards the demographic analysis. During the summer, they'll be going out and identifying the facilities priorities, which ones need some sort of upgrades and some sort of money thrown at them, as well as preparing a capital improvements matrix. This summer and fall is also gonna, actually it'll probably be a little bit sooner than this summer, but there's gonna be that, the public outreach process that will be, it'll be probably the main focus of this effort, of this master plan update. So we want to be as transparent as possible and get everybody involved in this so nobody's left behind. And then finally, we're going to shoot for an adoption in the late fall of 2017. So with that being said, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Let me ask Katie, is there any public comment on this?
Mr.
item?
Chair, could I ask a question first?
Yeah.
Or we're going to do that
We're
first?
gonna do that
Okay.
next, yeah. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and see if there are any questions from the commissioners. Mr. Haran, do you have a question?
Which sub-district or whatever you refer to does Incline Village fall in?
Believe Incline is under what's called 4A. Crystal Bay is 4B.
So there are actually two subsections?
That is correct.
Okay. I'd like to get together with you some other, after the meeting or tomorrow or sometime.
Sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you heard any discussion at all about a piece of legislation being fronted in this legislative session to create a separate park district?
I have, but just bits and pieces of it. That's really the extent of it I know.
We can't get into too much deliberation this evening, but when you come back to make the presentation, if you could be prepared to address that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other commission questions? Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Troy. We appreciate your presentation. I think it was a very, very good presentation. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Okay, let's go to 9A. These are public hearings. This is amendment of conditions, case number WAC 16-0001 for tentative subdivision map, case number TM 05-011, Ladera Ranch. And I'd ask Mr. Webb to identify the general nature of the proceeding, please.
With pleasure. Hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve an amendment to two of the original conditions of approval for tentative subdivision map case number TM 05-011, Ladera Ranch. The amendment seeks to reduce the side yard setback from 6 feet existing to 5 feet proposed, and to also reduce the front yard setback from 20 feet existing to 10 feet proposed for the living area of the house and side turn garages. The front yard setback would remain 20 feet for front-facing garages. The staff planner assigned is Kelly Mullen.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Do we have any disclosures by commissioners, either as to ethics or ex parte communications?
None.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Haran?
I guess I should disclose, I serve on a homeowners association board that is in a development that D.R. Horton built, and we're in the process of a construction defense deficiency lawsuit with them. I don't believe it's going to impact my ability to make a decision, but I thought I should disclose that.
Okay, thank you. Any other disclosures? All right, seeing none, go ahead and open the public hearing. I'd ask for the staff presentation. Kelly, you want to go ahead and get started?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, members of the commission. I'm Kelly Mullen, planner with Washoe County. Tonight we'll be talking about the amendment of conditions for the Ladera Ranch subdivision. The subject site is located within the Sun Valley planning area. It's just south of where 7th Avenue becomes East Golden Valley Road, and that's at Dreamcatcher Drive. The properties here are zoned medium-density suburban, low-density suburban, high-density rural, and open space. So the Ladera Ranch subdivision was originally approved by the Planning Commission back in 2005, and there were some minor amendments in 2006 as well. This is a 356-lot common open space subdivision with lots ranging in size from approximately 5,700 square feet to 14,700 square feet, with an average lot size of just under 7,500 square feet. In 2007, 105 of the lots were recorded, but no construction has occurred, and that map is active until July of this year. So the request this evening is focusing solely on amending 2 of the original conditions of approval. Both of those are related to setbacks. On the screen here is an example of what a proposed site plan might look like. The applicant is seeking to reduce the side yard setback from 6 feet to 5 feet. And the current required setback for the front yard right now is 20 feet. The applicant is seeking to reduce that front yard setback from 20 feet to 10 feet for the living portion of the home, and also for side-turned garages. No changes are proposed for street-facing garages. Those would remain at 20 feet setback, and no changes proposed for the rear yard. That would also remain at 20 feet. Conditions of approval were received from 3 of the agencies that are shown on the screen. Those conditions were included as Exhibit A. Next slide, please. Thank you. Notice of the proposal was provided to property owners of 299 parcels that were located within 500 feet of the subject site. And the request was heard last night at the Sun Valley Citizen Advisory Board, where the CAB voted 3-2 to recommend approval. Draft minutes of the meeting were provided to you today, but in summary, the Citizen Advisory Board and members of the public sought additional information on the reasoning for the request, home layouts and sizing, and market value. There was also additional discussion and concerns were voiced about topics that were considered during that original subdivision approval. That included the subdivision's potential impacts on traffic, drainage, and grading. Access was also discussed. No additional comments have been received from the public regarding this request. County staff does support this request for reduced setbacks to the extent that doing so would not lead to earthwork out of substantial compliance with the grading plans that were approved as part of those original subdivision approvals. And this proposal is not anticipated to create any further impacts beyond what was already reviewed in that original approval. Therefore, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission can make all of the required findings to support approval of this request. And if you agree with the recommendation and findings, a possible motion is displayed for you on the screen. With that, I'd like to conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions, and the applicant's representative, John Krimpotic, is also here this evening. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Kelly? Seen none, then I'd ask, oh, okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Haran.
Are the setbacks requested consistent with other developments in the immediate area?
Mr. Chair, I need to
Yes.
interject real quick. I wanted to follow up with Commissioner Haran before we go
Yes.
any further on his question. The disclosure that you made,
Yes.
Commissioner, I wanted to get a little bit more information into the record.
Certainly.
Is the construction deficiency case that you referenced, does that involve this project?
No.
Or is it a different one? Okay,
No.
thank you. Do you have a pecuniary interest in the outcome of this particular
No.
project here? And does your commitment to the homeowners association that you serve on prevent you from being able to function impartially in this matter?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Haran, do you want to go ahead?
I can ask now?
Yes, go ahead.
I think the question was, is it consistent with the setbacks, consistent with the other developments in the immediate area?
So the closest development is to the west. It's actually located within city limits of Reno. I'm uncertain of what the setbacks are there, but I can tell you that for the average lot size for this subdivision, that average lot size being under 7,500 square feet, that is most comparable to our high-density suburban regulatory zone, which does have 5-foot side yard setbacks and 20-foot front yard setbacks. We have seen in other subdivisions in the county where setbacks have been reduced for the living portion of the home and for side turn garages. Woodland Village is one of those examples.
Any other questions for Kelly?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Sarah.
I don't know if this is for you or the applicant, but why the request for the change in setbacks?
I will refer that over to the applicant so they can address it directly.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, any other questions for Kelly? All right, seeing none, John, would you like to come forward and make the applicant presentation, please?
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. John Krompottek with KLS Planning, representing the applicant, who is D.R. Horton. Would you like me to address the question?
Yeah, why don't you address the question here, please?
Could we go to the PowerPoint that I provided and go to a couple slides to the forward, please? We've seen that. So just to touch on the character, the architecture, there is if you could go back one, please. So there's 2,600 square foot product. That's an elevation that would be typical of 4 different product house sizes, 2-story mostly. Next. So there is, there's a lot that goes on into these setbacks. You guys know, Kelly said it best, and that was key to my talking points, was that what we really have is something that's most typical of an HDS subdivision with 5,700 square foot minimum lot size that ranges up to something higher, but it's more typical. So if you look at pure zoning criteria and proportions that you have in setbacks, 5 on the side yards, 10 in the front, and keeping the 20, which is the livable part of yards that we use in our most personal private space, is really the part that you want to keep. So the market side of this is when you go to, you can see the 20-foot setback, of course, with this product type that is desired and very successful with this home builder. That product on this lot would have that big encroachment into the rear yard. So if you go to the next slide, moving it forward 10 feet, we now have the 3-car garage, 1 side turn, 2-car garage with the 20-foot setback, including the 2 driveway spaces, and the 20-foot rear yard. Getting more in design, if you could go into the next slide. There is actually their product as proposed here with a 10-foot side yard turn. And then the next one, please. This is kind of conventional design with what you see. I had this in my file for planning and design standards that you'd see today that are typical for 6,000 square foot lot. But what you see there is a nice varied setback in the front car garage. You look at the 4 houses, they're all varied. You have the articulation, which is important to the eye. It adds interest to the streetscape that you see 3-dimensionally in the upper photo. And so with the 10-yard setback, we would suggest and expect you're actually going to get a nicer streetscape and a nicer neighborhood. The next slide is what we did many years ago, and you see what you really don't want to do, and that is 20-foot setback consistent, a uniform setback, garage forward that dominates the streetscape, same roof lines and same elevations, exactly what we don't want to do. And we believe with this varied setback, it gives them more flexibility, less 2-story product, and more interest in the street scene. That's really the idea. So that's all that I have.
Okay. Any other questions for John? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you.
John, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Katie, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Any commission questions of staff, applicant, or members of the public? Okay, seeing none, go ahead and close the public hearing. Bring it back to the commission for discussion. Do we have any commission discussion? Okay, then I'd call for a motion.
I'll make a motion, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
Yes, Mr. Pro?
thank you. Regarding item 9A, amendment of condition case WAC 16-1 for tentative subdivision map, case number TM 05-011, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained within the staff report and received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve amendment of conditions case WAC 16-1 for DR Horton for the tentative subdivision map, case number TM 05-001 Ladera Ranch, with the amended conditions of approval included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 10 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.608.25, and I can find that they meet all of those.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Pro and a second by Mr. Chesney. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, then I would call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to item 9B. This is tentative subdivision map case number WTM 16-003, Bailey Creek Estates. And I'd ask Mr. Webb to identify the general nature of the proceeding.
Hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a 56-lot, single-family residential subdivision on 2 parcels totaling plus or minus 28.76 acres. Residential lots will vary in size from 14,520 square feet, which is plus or minus 0.33 acres, to 21,780 square feet, which is plus or minus 0.1 acres, with lot sizes averaging 17,869 square feet, or plus or minus 0.41 acres. The subdivision includes approximately 0.75 acres of common area for drainage facilities. The staff planner is Kelly Mullen.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. I'd ask for disclosures by commissioners, and this would be as to ethics and ex parte communications. I would say first that I have received, and I believe probably all the commissioners have received several emails, many public comment letters, and we do thank the public for all of their input. And I believe each commissioner has a packet at their desk of all the public comment and the emails. I believe there were 10 to 15 of these public inputs. So I'd ask if any of the other commissioners have disclosures to make.
Other than the ones you've just disclosed, as Chairman, I was also received a phone call from Wood Rogers inquiring as to whether I would be interested in meeting with them to discuss, et cetera. I declined and had no discussions with them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I also was contacted by Wood Rogers, and I declined a meeting with them, and I've received all the other communication.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I too was contacted and declined it.
Okay.
Same, Chair, but I declined to meet.
Okay.
I received a voicemail but did not return the call.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I think that takes care of the disclosures. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Ask for the staff presentation. Kelly Mullen, would you please make the staff presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening again, Commissioners. So this hearing is for Bailey Creek Estates subdivision request. The property is located within the Southeast Truckee Meadows planning area. It's just south of Geiger Grade at Shadow Hills Drive, and the site encompasses 2 parcels that together total just under 29 acres. The properties are zoned medium-density suburban. There is also a very small amount of general rural under an acre on the property. And in most areas of the county, medium-density suburban allows for up to 3 dwelling units per acre. However, in the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan, that is limited to 2 dwelling units per acre. And to provide a little bit of history on this site, I do want to point out that in 2004, there was a 57-lot subdivision that was approved on this site, and it was not built out. The map did expire back in 2010. So as proposed, there will be 56 residential lots on the property, which range in size from 1/3 of an acre to 0.81 acres, averaging out at 0.41 acres. There's also about 3/4 of an acre of the site set aside for common area drainage facilities. You can see the main entrance is along Geiger Grade, that's on the left side of the screen. There's also a gated emergency vehicle access along Moon Lane. And then I'd also like to point out below the, if we could go back one slide, please. Thank you. On the screen up here, we've got the laser pointer that's kind of showing this white area through here. I just want to point out that that is common open space for the subdivision to the west, Cottonwood Creek Estates. That's the area through which Bailey Canyon Creek runs, and that is not part of the subject site. Next slide, please. So this is an aerial photo showing the two properties that are outlined in blue on that screen. To review compatibility with the surrounding properties, we'll look at how the immediate vicinity has been developed. As you can see, this is essentially an infill subdivision with residential development surrounding it on most sides. And all of the residential properties that are shown in this photo are zoned medium density suburban, which is the same as the subject site. There are also some commercially zoned properties to the northeast of the property, as well as a small park site to the southwest. And everything to the west of that top parcel is part of Cottonwood Creek Estate subdivision. Lots in that development range from 1/4 acre to 1/3 of an acre. Across Geiger Grade to the north is that's the Shadow Hills and Sagewood Estates subdivisions. Most of those properties are approximately 1/2 acre in size. To the east, we'll find individually developed properties that range in size from about 1/2 an acre to 3.75 acres. And then to the south is the Comstock Estate subdivision, and those lots average about 1/3 of an acre. The Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan does have some requirements in terms of lot sizes that vary depending on adjacent parcels. And the proposed subdivision design does comply with those requirements. The area plan also requires matching buildings in terms of height, single-story or multi-story, when you bring in a new development adjacent to existing development. There are also other policies that are aimed at reducing impacts to neighboring properties, such as dark sky lighting standards, noxious weed control, and treatment of disturbed soils. We do have recommended conditions of approval included with the packet for you for those. The agencies that are shown on the screen are those that had been provided for review, and we received comments back from those agencies. We do have recommended conditions of approval from each of the agencies shown on the screen. Those conditions are included as Exhibit A with the staff report, but we do have comments on a variety of topics from planning, from our engineering capital projects team, from utility services, which deals with sewer, from the health district, the school district, Truckee Meadows Fire, Truckee Meadows Water Authority, State Division of Environmental Protection, State Division of Water Resources, as well as the Regional Transportation Commission. In terms of potential school impacts, the Washoe County School District has indicated that nearby schools are at or nearing capacity with the percentages that are shown on the screen for Brown Elementary, DePoley Middle School, and DeMonte Ranch High School. The school district has calculated that the proposed development would generate 14 new elementary school students, 3 middle school students, and 7 high school students. As a result, the district has advised that students from the development may be assigned to the nearest school with capacity. And they have also indicated that with Brown Elementary's current capacity, it will convert to a multi-track year-round schedule for the next school year. I'd like to point out that Mike Boster from the Washoe County School District is in attendance this evening to address any school-related questions that you may have. In terms of traffic, the primary access would be off of Geiger Grade with that gated emergency access off of Moon Lane. The project is anticipated to generate 533 average daily trips, along with 56 afternoon peak hour trips, 42 morning peak hour trips, and those peak hour numbers are below the threshold where it's required for a development to provide a full traffic study, but the applicant did provide a traffic study to Washoe County as a courtesy for review. We do have several conditions of approval related to traffic. One of those would include a deceleration lane. That would be along the southern side of Geiger Grade leading up to the subdivision's entrance. In terms of water and sewer, water service would be provided by the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, and service would be out of the South Truckee Meadows General Improvement District East system. Truckee Meadows Water Authority has indicated that there would be no impact to local domestic wells with this project. Sewer service would be provided by the Washoe County Utility, with treatment occurring at the South Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. The site is vacant and relatively level. Grading would involve approximately 50,000 cubic yards of cut and fill that would balance on site. There are 5 common area parcels that are proposed for drainage and detention facilities, as pointed out earlier. And the southern portion of the subject site is identified as being located within a shaded X FEMA zone, which is outside of the 100-year floodplain, but within the 500-year floodplain. And again, Bailey Canyon Creek is located on the adjacent property to the west part of that Cottonwood Creek Estate subdivision. We'll talk a little bit more about drainage and flooding concerns in a moment. Before we get to that, in terms of notice, that was provided to neighboring property owners. That went to owners of 204 parcels that are within 500 feet of the project site. The project was also heard at the South Truckee Meadows Washoe Valley Citizen Advisory Board meeting on January 25th, and the discussion was detailed in the Citizen Advisory Board meeting minutes that you received. That was provided as an addendum to the staff report last week. In summary, questions and concerns are shown on the screen just as major topics. Some of the discussion centered around drainage and flooding, traffic concerns, concerns about school capacity, emergency access, wildlife, specifically horses in the area, the height of proposed homes and views from existing homes, construction noise, and the proposed development schedule. The CAB did vote to forward those comments to you for review. There was also a response from the applicant that was provided in that addendum to you last week. As you're aware, several letters from members of the public have been received regarding this project. Most of those were provided in the staff report, the addendum last week, as well as an additional addendum to you today. Staff was also made aware of a petition that has been circulating online that states that it's seeking to stop construction of Bailey Creek Estates. We did provide a link to that petition in the addendum to you last week so that you would be able to review those comments. The concerns are voiced in the petition and in many of the letters that you received, very similar to some of the items that we heard at the CAB meeting. Those are also displayed on the screen, especially related to stray horses, drainage, flooding, emergency access, school capacity, again, noise and light, also availability of water, traffic concerns in the area, views from existing home, and maintaining open spaces. With all of those comments that were provided, there were 2 kind of major themes that I'd like to focus a little bit more on. Most of those issues had been addressed to some degree in the staff report, but I'd like to focus specifically right now on the concerns related to horses in the area, those that are kind of roaming near the project site. After we started hearing about those concerns, we did reach out to the Bureau of Land Management to get feedback from them, and they did indicate that any horses that are in the project area are not within a BLM herd management area, are not under federal protection or jurisdiction. However, they did state that the horses that are roaming in that area would be governed under what are called estray regulations, state estray regulations, and that those horses would be considered stray or feral livestock. The state regulations related to estuaries do indicate that they would be the property of the state. Those statutes deal mainly with collection of estuaries, not necessarily protection of them. We did also reach out to regional animal services, who indicated that there are no specific protections for estuaries. As we talked about previously, Bailey Canyon Creek is not part of the subject site, but it is a floodway that is located to the west within Cottonwood Creek Estates. And the majority of this subject site is not located within a floodplain, although the southern portion is identified as shaded X, which is within the 500-year floodplain. And on the next slide, we'll see the delineation of those areas. The subject sites are outlined in yellow. The floodway, you can see in the upper left corner, the legend shows how that is identified. You can see the Bailey Canyon Creek identified as floodway going along the western portion of the property, and the shaded X area is shown in gray hatching kind of on the southern portion of the site. So we'd like to talk about flooding and drainage concerns a little bit more. So I'm going to be handing this off to Dwayne Smith, which is our Division Director of Engineering and Capital Projects, so he can speak a little bit more about those concerns. But before I do that, I would like to conclude my portion of the presentation by stating that, as outlined in the written analysis, staff does believe that the required findings for approval can be met. We are recommending approval to this board for this project.
Before
you.
we take Dwayne, are there any questions for Kelly at this point? Okay, we may call you back.
Certainly, thank you.
Okay, Dwayne, do you want to come forward now and talk about the drainage and flooding?
Sure, good evening. For the record, Chair and Commissioners, Dwayne Smith, Director of Engineering and Capital Projects for Washoe County. I just wanted to make myself available to you for questions. I know there is a lot of concerns and discussions regarding flooding, and of course, we're seeing that even today, and for those folks that live down in that area, they're experiencing that, and so we're very cognizant of that. I just thought it was important to mention a couple of things. First of all, the proposed development has to go through review processes. I wanted to focus a little bit in on the engineering process just for a moment. You know, these review processes include the submittal for these tentative map processes of reports, stormwater reports, traffic reports, et cetera, and also the designs that are proposed for those developments. My staff has reviewed those proposed designs and reviewed those reports. Our review has confirmed that the proposed project complies with what the county requirements are for stormwater. I do want to make sure that I'm clear. I'm talking about stormwater, not floodwater. There's a big difference between what we expect during flooding, and we did see with Kelly's slide that this project is adjacent to a FEMA designated floodplain. What I'm talking about is a stormwater that is what is generated on site with typical storm events and how that is dealt with. So again, our review confirmed that the proposed project does comply with the county requirements, Articles 416, 420, et cetera, of Washoe County Code for stormwater. That means that the development has mitigated or plans to mitigate those impacts for stormwater. They've done this through routing and detention. So there are several detention basins that are included in the proposed design and routing of that stormwater through the development to those basins. This is a requirement of all development. All development has to mitigate their stormwater impacts. And again, this development has done that. When it comes time for final map and for actual construction and development, we will also be there to make sure that the final map conforms to the tentative map requirements and that they meet those requirements of Washoe County. Again, what I'm talking about is stormwater, and I know there are a lot of concerns about floodwater. If you do have questions about that, I'm happy to answer those questions as well. If you have questions on traffic, those types of things, I can also address those for you.
Any questions for Mr. Smith?
Oh, so very.
Okay, Francine.
Yes, Dwayne, you said this is storm and flood. If you bring that one back up, it shows the most, I guess, southern portion being part of the floodplain X. So you're saying that whatever they're going to do, would those properties automatically be mandated to have flood insurance because they're in a FEMA floodplain? If they build there and they buy the homes there?
Yeah, through the chair to the commissioner. So just to give a little bit definition for just a second on what you're seeing there on the screen, as Kelly indicated, the floodplain is what we see, the outer boundaries with the floodway down through the middle for Bailey Creek. The southern portion of the site is in the shaded zone X area. That means that there is, well, first of all, everywhere has the potential to flood. So even the areas that are outside of those lines on that map can flood under certain conditions. The shaded zone X is what FEMA has designated as the 500-year probability. So there is a chance that within every 500 year of flood that you could have water up to a foot of depth through that area. The requirements don't, the code requirements don't require any special modifications to that area for development. Now they have, of course, complied with 416 and 420, the portions of the development code for detention and routing. But that area down through there where there is the shaded zone X, the 500-year floodplain, there is no specific requirement for how that is dealt with because it is outside of the FEMA designated 100-year floodplain. I don't think you can really see it on this map really well, but the zone A is the actual FEMA 100-year floodplain. That would have requirements for many things, including special issues for building homes, building anything within that floodplain. Those areas would also require flood insurance. So under FEMA, the FIRM program, the flood insurance program, if you are within that designated area, then you would have to pay FEMA flood insurance.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Other questions for Mr. Smith? Yes, Sarah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the way in the upper area where it says that it's a floodway, looks like it abuts the property and at some points goes over the border of the property. Is that an accurate statement?
I don't have this
is a-
depiction, what I'm seeing here. I believe that, and I would turn and look at the consultant, I believe that all of the project except for that southern portion is outside of the floodplain.
Well, in the map here,
Yeah, that might be a better, more clear map.
it's very close to the property lines of this development plan. And when you talked about stormwater and floodwater, and I did whisper to the chairman, it's like, maybe we've seen a 500-year flood event in 2 months or 3 weeks. We've seen a lot of water. And I do appreciate and understand your differentiation between floodwater and stormwater, because these have all been storm events. But, and that the property, and we do know that we're in a tentative map. We're not, we've got a ways yet to go in this process. But what are the unintentional effects on adjacent properties? Because there is lots of different topography and there is designated flood zone areas adjacent to this property. So what, as Bailey Creek manages for runoff and detention, are there unintentional effects on adjacent properties?
If I can, through the chair to the commissioner, again, through my department's review of the project and confirming that it conforms with Washoe County requirements, all stormwater that's captured on the property will be routed and conveyed to detention basins so that it does, so post-development flows do not exceed pre-development flows. That is a hallmark or a basic requirement of all developments, and it is included as a requirement for this development. I'm again referring to stormwater. When there are floods, which there are, we all know that. We're experiencing that in areas right now, and we've experienced that, and we will also experience floods into the future. When those events occur, they exceed the carrying capacities of the designed infrastructure. We don't require development to design infrastructure to handle those large flood events. It wouldn't be reasonable, practical, or cost-effective to require development to do that. Our ditches would go from small ditches on the roadsides, which convey 5 and 10-year flows, to massive concrete-lined channels. And we do have examples of that in the county, and I'm happy to take you on a field trip and show you what the difference looks like what it looks like. But there is no requirement the requirement is for stormwater. And that is exactly what we, Washoe County Engineering, make sure through our review process that the proposed designs conform to that. So maybe another way to answer your question is, for stormwater, that's been dealt with through the proposed stormwater report and plans that we've been provided. And Washoe County will make sure that when the actual development goes through, that they continue to conform to those requirements, and what is built conforms to those requirements. Flood infrastructure is not a requirement. And if there is a flood, I can't tell you what that flood will do. But I will tell you that there should be no expectation that any development can design for, these very large, extreme flood events. It's not a requirement.
Does the county require notification to potential future homeowners of the adjacency to different types of floodways and flood zones?
I think through the public process that we go through, starting with what we're doing today and even going through the rest of it, there is a lot of public notification about where floodplains and floodways are. There are other resources available. I don't know the exact answer to the question how we would notify or what that requirement is. But I do know that going through the public processes, just again as we were doing tonight, there's a lot of notification about what's out there, where there are floodplains, where there are FEMA-designated floodplains and floodways. And of course, those resources are also available on site. And any development that goes in is going to be required to go through a process, just as this development. And that process is going to require experts, engineers, architects, planners, developers that are going to go through that process. I also believe that this development, and I could be wrong, but may have an HOA required. It may also have an HOA associated with it. There may be some language that is either included or could be included in the HOA CC&Rs.
So I'm speaking more to disclosure, not notification. So is in terms of when this is purchased and stuff, is that future homeowners are disclosed that of potential risk that they're living in? For stormwater, for flood, all of that, because of the adjacency of all of that.
Since this project is not within a FEMA-defined floodplain except for that lower portion, I don't believe that there would be a specific notification process that the county or that FEMA would go through.
Okay.
Now, if that is within a FEMA floodplain, and again, that's when the FEMA required flood insurance process steps in, there are certainly notifications, expectations, and requirements for them to participate in the FEMA flood program.
Any other questions for Mr. Smith? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We may call you back, but nothing more at this time. Okay, is there any further staff presentation? Okay, then we'll call for the applicant presentation. Would you state your name and address, please?
Good evening, Stacy Huggins with Wood Rogers, representing the applicant tonight. Our address is 1361 Corporate Boulevard. Kelly did a fantastic job of covering our project, so you're going to find that a lot of my information is repetitive to what she said. I think that's a good indication that the developer agrees with staff's review of this project. We're definitely on the same page. Before I get too much further, I want to just mention the rest of our team is here. Steve Strickland, who's the project engineer on this project with Wood Rogers. Brian Newman with Silvercrest Homes. Rich Balistreri with Tim Lewis Communities. Paul Salegi with Salegi Engineering, in case you have any questions about traffic. And Steve Moleth is here. He's the land use attorney, just in case there's any legal questions that come up regarding the project. Just really quick, before I get into my project, I wanted to quickly address your questions about disclosures. Disclosures about the flood zone are commonly provided by the lenders and the developers through the title report process. So when you purchase the property, there would be a disclosure in that title report that would clarify if you were in a flood zone or not. So just that's kind of a sidebar, but since you were talking about it, I thought I'd mention it. Slide, please. Again, a lot of this is going to be very similar. This is a 28.76 acre privately owned parcel located in South Reno, east of Geiger Grade and the Toll Road intersection. Next slide. The project site is bound by Geiger Grade on the north, Kivett Lane to the east, Toll Road to the west and south, essentially. Surrounding uses, primarily residential. You can see to the north there, to the north, to the south and the west. We have residential to the east, as well as some commercial uses on the east, fronting onto Geiger Grade. Next slide. Just a view of the zoning. As Kelly mentioned, this property site or project site is designated medium density suburban. Throughout the county, medium density suburban typically allows up to 3 units per acre. This project site not only has the medium density suburban zoning designation, it is also within the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan, which restricts the density to 2 units to the acre. I want to note that when the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan was being established, the residents in this area had a very active voice. They helped define the policies that are in this plan. They helped write it. They were very involved. That plan was written about 20 years ago. So most of the folks that live out here have were probably a part of establishing what you see today. You can also see from this map the surrounding land use designations are consistent. MDS all around this site. There is a little bit of general commercial. Again, that's adjacent to Geiger Grade. Next slide. So just a little bit of history. There was a fairly large project that was approved on what I'll call the north and the south sides of Bailey Creek. And so without being able, let's see if I can do it over here. As Kelly pointed out, this is the Bailey Creek drainage area. So there was a tentative map originally approved for the entire area here back in 1994. It expired before everything was built out. In 2003, a new tentative map was approved by the Planning Commission on 28.6 acres. It was 57 lots. It was 2 units to the acre. The lot sizes ranged from 9,988 to 32,000 square feet in size. That project also proposed its primary access from Shadow Hills Drive with access at Moon. And this was not a gated access. This was a full access that would connect out to Kivett. This map expired as a result of the economic downturn. And so what you see on the north there is no longer active. The bottom line I want to point out here is this property has been privately owned and zoned for development as far back as 1994. So what we're asking for today is consistent with what has happened on that property in the past. Thank you. As I mentioned, or Kelly mentioned, we are here tonight seeking approval for a tentative map for 56 lots. You can see this project that's before you is very similar to the one I just showed you from 2003. Just a couple of the differences, 56 versus 57 were 1 less lot than was approved then. The previous project was actually right at 2 units to the acre. The proposed project is 1.95 units to the acre. This proposed project includes bigger lots along Geiger Grade, half-acre lots along Geiger Grade, and third-acre lots on the interior adjacent to the creek. That's consistent with the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan policies. They define those lot sizes, and this project meets that requirement. As Kelly mentioned, we also have common areas throughout the project for detention and drainage, and we have 0.75 acres of common area. This map also shows that shaded Zone X area down here. I don't spend a lot of time on that. since we just talked about it. But again, this project, as shown here, is designed to accommodate a 100-year storm event, and it's in accordance with Washoe County Development Code. Next slide. Drainage specific to this project. The project designed in accordance with code. We have on-site drainage that is directed to the detention basins, and one of the detention, so there's a basin here, 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 and then there's a basin that is up here. All of those areas will take any runoff from the adjacent properties and the developed portions of the project site through underground storm drain pipes. The lots located along the eastern boundary of the project site will include a drainage ditch in the rear yards to direct drainage toward the common and detention areas. Where the ditches are not located in not located within the individual lots, they will be maintained by the HOA. Next slide. Looking at traffic and access, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. The main access to the site is Shadow Hills Drive, which aligns with Shadow Hills across the street and is also consistent with the 2 prior approvals on this piece of property. There is secondary emergency access located at Moon Lane. The developer is proposing to install an emergency access gate right here so that these 2 individuals can continue to utilize Moon Lane to get out. That emergency access gate will only be used in the case that people in this subdivision cannot get out here. There will be no other reason for this gate to be open. This will only happen if they cannot get out here. We did look at the traffic associated with this. Traffic studies are typically required if you meet a threshold of 80 p.m. peak hour trips. This project, Salegi engineers looked at this project, and initially this project did not meet that threshold. However, I believe you all received a copy of the traffic study that was done over and above the requirement for that. The traffic study found that this project would generate 533 average daily trips, and the peak PM trips would be 56. As a part of this project, the developer will construct a right turn eastbound deceleration lane, so essentially an eastbound lane turning southbound into the project. If you have additional questions about the traffic, Mr. Slaggy is here to answer them. Next slide, please. Just kind of touching on the key points, and several of them we've talked about. Drainage. Again, this project is designed in accordance with Truckee Meadows Drainage Manual as well as the Washoe County Development Code requirements. All the utilities for this project are available in Geiger grade, and the utility providers have confirmed that there is available capacity. Schools, we know there's concerns with schools. We know that Brown Elementary is a concern for everyone. With the passage of WC1, additional funds are available to the school district to construct new facilities. In fact, our understanding is that a new school in South Reno is their first priority, and that they are expecting a new elementary school to be built by December of 2018, which is perfect. This project, we anticipate schools, children to be coming out of this project by fall of 2018. Views and open space, I know there's a lot of conversation about that. I mentioned this earlier. This property has been privately owned and designated for development for at least the last 20 years. The tentative maps that were previously approved show the precedence in moving forward with development on this site. With regard to lot matching, we are lot matching throughout this project, which meets the Southeast Truckee Meadows Area Plan policies. Again, the half-acre lots on the north, the third-acre lots on the interior. And there's also a policy that requires that the building type match the adjacent building type. So if a single-story home is on an adjacent parcel, a single-story home will be built within our project on the opposite parcel. Horse migration, I know that there's a lot of concern about the horses. Kelly touched on that. We do not have a path through our project for the horses to get to the creek, but we are not eliminating access to the creek. Access and traffic, I mentioned that The access that going into this project is consistent with past approvals. Geiger grade is a 100-foot right-of-way right now, so the improvements of that lane will take place within that right-of-way, and the only improvements that were recommended was the deceleration lane. In closing, this project is designed in accordance with all the applicable goals and policies of the master plan, as well as the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan. I appreciate your time, and if it's okay with the chair, I'd like to ask to reserve the remaining time in case there's any rebuttal at the end.
Yes, that'll be fine. Do we have any questions for the applicant's representative? Mr. Haran?
Ms. Suggs, would you go back to that emergency access and go over that one more time? It kind of went by me. Just back one slide, I
Just one
think.
slide, yeah.
Did you say that that gate was going to be only available during an emergency? How is that, is that a fire gate? Do the firemen control that?
Yes, it
So
will.
the residents wouldn't be able to control it. It's a fire access gate.
Correct. That's correct. It will be emergency access only that will be controlled by emergency crews, so fire.
Okay.
Thank you. Sure.
Any other questions for the applicant's representative? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Katie, do we have any public comment?
We do. We have Ray Fierro, followed by Kathleen Pfaff.
Okay, would you come forward, state your name and address, please?
Thank you. I'm Ray Fierro, 15200 Bailey Canyon Drive. And we just purchased the property, so it wasn't part of the notification for this. And I'm not necessarily opposed to the project. I just wanted to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And as you know, this board is required by NRS 278.349 for you to require certain items, and some of those have already been addressed tonight, but I'm still going to go over some of them. Availability and accessibility to public services. Big one is the schools. As noted, Brown Elementary is overcrowded. So is Double Diamond Elementary. Something to definitely consider in your decision. The streets and highways. One of the biggest factors in accidents is access control points. It's interesting to me on the ingress and egress on this project. Yeah, definitely I had just a short time to look at the traffic study, and I do believe that a deceleration lane is definitely appropriate and should be part of your conditions of approval. However, it doesn't look like left turning movements out of the project have really been addressed. And I do have some concerns with Moon Lane with that emergency access when it looks like portion may be paved, but the rest of Moon Lane is not in the best condition. That should be looked at. The drainage and stormwater, the engineer said those have been taken care of, but we do have floodplain issues, and I'm curious, when were the last FEMA flood maps revised for this area? Some of the boards that I've sat on myself, we've noticed that when we do revisions to the FEMA flood maps, the areas that we thought were not in a particular floodway or particular flood zone have changed over time, and that's something that should be addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Katie, who was next?
Kathleen Pfaff.
Okay. Please come forward and state your name and address.
Yes. Well, if you want to display them while you're speaking, there'll be a little spot up there that you can place them. Okay. And I'll pull them up on the camera.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kathleen Pfaff. I'm at 15170 Bailey Canyon Drive in Reno. So I can put them right here? Okay, so many of our neighbors have signed the petition online. There's over 180 signatures so far of how you guys said 200 notices were sent out. That seems like a significant amount of people in opposition to this project. I just wanted to show a couple pictures really quick about what Toll Road and the surrounding area has been looking like.
Keep turning.
Yeah, look at the screen when you're adjusting, that helps a little bit.
Okay, that is Toll Road and Geiger Grade. My concern with this project is the engineer said that current systems have been studied or what have you. If they're not functioning as they are now, they've been studied, this has been going on since 1994, I'm under the understanding that this has been happening in this area for 30 plus years. And so my concern is if this is still going on after all this time, after these developments have been proposed and already developed in certain areas, what is gonna happen to these zones that are currently flooding as they are today? This is Moon Lane today. This is the emergency access that these people are gonna be using. As you can see, it's washing away. This was taken today. This isn't even the big flood that we had at the beginning of January. This picture was also taken today. This picture is the west side of Toll Road and Geiger Grade. Again, this picture was taken today. So many of us are concerned with safety and future flood risks, not just for ourselves, but for our potential future neighbors. Much of what the developer is proposing will route some of their drainage into Bailey Creek in their proposal is what I read. So yes, they're gonna put them into their own drainage facilities, but some of the additional runoff is gonna go into the creek that runs behind my house that was raging like an ocean back in January. And we also just moved to this neighborhood less than a year ago. And I don't remember anyone disclosing to us that we were purchasing a home in a FEMA Flood X zone. And when I looked at the FEMA website, it did say that areas in this type of flood zone are at an increased risk of flooding when current drainage systems are insufficient. And I would guess to say that the current drainage systems as they are today are insufficient. Toll Road was closed for 2 weeks in January. 25% of insurance flood claims are filed in zones just like this in that southern portion of the development map that they're showing you. So that's, I guess, all the time I have.
Okay, thank you. Katie, you want to call the next?
Yes, we have Tom Ost followed by Chris D'Amico.
Come forward and state your name and address, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Tom Ost. I live at 14668 Gold Run Drive, which is off of Toll Road. And I'm going to approach my comments from a common sense point of view. I understand through the discussion here that so many of the specific legal requirements, code situations have been addressed, but there's also just a basic common sense thing that comes to my mind, and that's when is enough enough? Our whole area of town, if you go down Veterans Parkway, is being built nonstop, hundreds of houses. I understand that this property is privately owned and they have every right to do it, but I just feel like our schools are grossly overcrowded, our infrastructures are stressed beyond belief. I would really, really appreciate you as the commissioners to make a common sense decision and deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you come forward, state your name and address, please?
Hi, I'm Krista Miko, and I live at 13583 Gold Run Drive. First, I would like to oppose this. We like our backyard. We like seeing what we have, but understand that the property's there. It's owned. It's been zoned for this, all of that. And I've read the staff report and read through all the information. With reading through all that, if this is approved, I'm hoping that, as was stated earlier, that one-story houses will be built where one-story houses are built. And if that's included in the final plan or requirements, that would be great. Because if not, a two-story house would truly be looking right in our backyard, and kind of takes away a privacy and a quality of life for us. I know the maximum density has been looked at, and I think that that was recently reviewed. I don't know if that's something that would be up for discussion, or to maybe, you know, less houses would help with flooding and some of that, some of those items and the drainage ditches and all of that. I think that the drainage containers that they're looking at putting in that drain into Bailey Creek, a lot of those can get filled up with silt. They can get filled and overflood and all of that. I'm hoping that that will be included in the CCNRs or in the final stuff, that those have to be kept clean, that they have to be cleared out so that it doesn't impact ultimate flooding in the area. As well as just looking at the overall, from a county perspective, the overall Bailey Creek and the ditch and the flooding that happens in that area. I know that's not part of the developer's responsibility, but I don't know, from a county perspective, is that something that really needs to be looked at with the additional drainage that will go out of those 5 ditches into Bailey Creek that already floods every time that it rains, at least lately. I think that that's pretty much everything that was on my list, just to make sure that all those things are included in the final planning so that they can't come and all of a sudden build a 2-story house or something like that. It's a really quality of life issue. It's nice to sit in your backyard, see the mountain, see a little space. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie?
We have Elmira, it's either Connor or Cover, followed by Randy Coker, or different.
My name is Elmira Coker, and I live on 1540 Geiger Grade in Reno. And I just wanted to show you some spectacular Bailey Creek this morning. I took a video specifically for today, this meeting, and I was wondering how can I do it. I have this video on my computer, and I just can't open it, but I don't know how it's possible for you.
Yeah.
You see the sign High Chaparral, and this is the Bailey Creek.
Ma'am, if you could just speak into the microphone, please.
Yeah, I say that this was near the High Chaparral Street, that is by Geiger Grade, and this is the Bailey Creek by Geiger Grade. And the toll road, as you saw on the picture, is not flooded on the left side like it was before because something was done to it, but it's now flooded on the right side, and you saw it on the picture. So this problem is not resolved at all. And I also would like to address the issue with the wild horses. I just discovered that the wild horses were renamed by Washoe County as stray horses. For me, it doesn't make any difference. They are horses, they are creatures of nature, and they are there. And this document that is created by Wood Rogers tentative map states that there is no migration zone in the site of this development, proposed development. That's not true. The horses are all the time there. And I submitted picture to Kelly Mullen with a lot of horses, and I have these pictures on my computer. If somebody is interested, I can show it. Then the other false statement that is in this tentative map is that the site does not contain trails. That's not true either. There is a trail on the site. So I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, I saw that somebody said something. It seems to me that the person who created this document has never set a foot in that area, otherwise there wouldn't be such statements. And also in regards to traffic, the traffic study has not been done. And they refer to manual.
You're going to have to wrap this up.
Okay, they refer to manual of 2012 that has nothing to do with Geiger Grade, has nothing to do with a small, tiny roundabout that we have on Geiger Grade and Veterans Parkway. It's not addressed at all. 56 lots does not equal 56 cars and 56 trips. It's 2 and 3 car garage houses. So it's double, at least the double this amount. So please don't be fooled by the number 56. It's just to get under the number 80, not to do the traffic study. That's all I want.
Okay, thank you.
We
Katie?
have Randy Coker, followed by Stefan Schrader.
My name's Randy Coker, and I live on Geiger Grade Road, and I'm nearly deaf, so I always speak loudly so everybody can hear me, not normal-sized voices that I can't practically hear anybody. So I apologize to everyone that I'm speaking too loud to. But I'm speaking not only for myself, but for a group of people who are not in this handout that were in the back. We've got about 198 people that have responded to this development here. And first I'd like to address those people, and I'd like to make a few comments on my own here as well. But these are just a few comments from our neighbors who signed our petition with nearly 198 supporters as of this afternoon. And I'm going to address each one of them. Jane Grossman writes, "This does not seem like a wise place to build. Yes, we need additional housing, but it sounds like there are many problems with this site." Jim Willie writes, "We need flood control, improved road prior to any new development. County should take care of what's already there. That's what we pay taxes for." Beverly Treadway writes, "There needs to be a better plan regarding the development of this property. This last series of flooding, Toll Road was closed 3 separate times. The alternate route, Kivett, is a 25-mile-per-hour residential street. It's narrow, barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass. Adding more homes would add stress to this existing infrastructure. I could understand a business use in that area or a few homes, but 56 is not smart in a FEMA floodplain." John Giambastiani, forgive me, writes, "The area is not good for growth, just for profit. There are much more suitable lands in our community that do not need to be completely reworked to accomplish the growth." Parthenia Martin writes, "The area identified for the subdivision is a flood hazard, and it was made abundantly clear this past month when the intersection of Toll and Geiger Grade was closed because of flooding. Flooding, traffic, and schools have not been addressed, nor has the impact on the rural quality of life, which is the reason we moved to this area. I am not objecting to development per se. I am strongly opposing a development that does not fit the character of the neighborhood, that has adverse impacts on schools, traffic, and wildlife, and does nothing to protect those who are uninformed and unfortunate enough to buy there from the regular flooding that the county has so far done nothing to correct." Patrick Payne writes, "The infrastructure is not in place to support a development in this large, and the area was never meant for a tract like this lying within a floodplain." Carrie Coleman writes, "I don't see one good thing that will come out of this subdivision. Our area schools are already grossly overcrowded."
Sir, you're going to have to wrap this up now.
Pardon me?
You're going to have to wrap this up, the speaking time.
Okay, can I use some of my own time for me to speak?
No.
No. You get 3 minutes and you.
So people get up here with a development, they can speak 10 minutes, and I can't address these things that I would like to address because of a 3-minute time frame, and I'm addressing these things that were not included in this. I would like 3 minutes, please,
Sir,
so I can
sir, your
discuss
time is
some
up.
things.
Could you please take your seat? Your time is up.
Pardon me?
Could you please take your seat? Your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see, 56 lot subdivision approved with conditions. Well, when I came in
Sir, if
today,
you
the
could please take
flooding
your
was still
seat.
taking place.
Sir, if
Channel
you could
4
please
was
take your
out
seat.
there, and the Reno Gazette Journal is involved.
Sir, please take your seat.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your time. I don't want to take too much of it.
Okay, Katie, who's next?
We have Stefan Schrader, followed by Sandy Moore.
Okay.
Stephen Schrader, 14665 Gold Run Drive, and I'm going to talk fast because took a lot of notes. First of all, I wanted to point out the video she showed didn't really illustrate that that's about 4 feet of water. It looks like a flooded ditch, but it's a normally dry, and this is the first time in 13 years I've seen 3 weeks of water in it. I'm also disturbed by some of the terms that were used in the presentation, the staff presentation, terms that sort of shaded in dismissal of certain things, like calling them stray and feral horses, when those of us that live there know they're wild horses. Just because BLM has reclassified them doesn't change what they really are. I've lived there for quite a while. My parents lived there before. We have the wild horses that come and eat our grass, rabbits that are in our backyard, coyotes, and I would rather have those animals there than if this development happens, we all here know those are going to be gone, 100%. We all see the horses back there, the coyotes. I want to speak as a father, a husband, and someone that shares my house with dogs. I don't want to call myself a dog owner, but we think of Reno as what Reno has, not what Reno is getting rid of. And I used to live in Denver. Once they zoned certain areas around Denver for things like this, all of a sudden the people that moved there, we've got peacocks, llamas. How long before they're trying to get rid of that and change the area from what it is? We're more of a ranch style area than a packed suburban. So I would like my 2-year-old daughter to grow up having space with horses, coyotes, rabbits, rather than what we're going to get rid of because of this. A couple of the other things. Oh, we keep talking about the flood and the water. Our driveway had water halfway up it 2 or 3 weeks ago. The storm drains at the very top of Gold Run were clogged. Water was, and we actually had, I think it was News 4 come up, water was shooting about 2 feet out of some of the drains because of water that was coming from elsewhere into our neighborhood because of the clogged storm drains. That water came down and there was not enough storm drains otherwise in the street, and that's what caused us, and we still have dirt in the roads, so I don't think the storm drains have been cleaned. We still have dirt in the roads from this last flood. So as for most of us, I don't think this is a 100 and 500 year storm. We get flooded already, so thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy Moore, followed by Karen Degny.
Hi, I'm Sandy Moore. Address is 749 Sterling Hills Court, Reno. I actually just want to share an email that I sent to County Commissioner Bob Lucy earlier and Kelly Mullen, and just read it to you guys, just to keep it simple and straightforward. My husband and I moved to Cottonwood Creek Estates in 2014 because of the open spaces surrounding us, the quiet neighborhood, views of the mountains and rural atmosphere close to town, and amenities that we don't want to lose. So we have a few concerns. A lot of these have been discussed this evening, but I want to make sure that everyone understands that it's concerns of everybody and that it is taken very seriously. First, the potential for 56 proposed homes. There's been some comments from developers that it could be, they have no idea of how many are going to be 2-story or single-story. And we've talked about that the infill project really should match the nature of the surrounding neighborhoods. I actually drove around today, and out of the 114 homes in my neighborhood, only 28 are two-story. So I really think that we need to keep that character in our neighborhood so that we don't ruin that open space feel that we have. Private property, people can build their homes, but they really need to fit in, especially when you're filling in such a small area. Additionally, traffic added to Geiger Grade. It's been a discussion, roundabout at Veterans Parkway. The roundabout's already very busy, very overrun by drivers who either don't know how to use a roundabout, or they just plain old ignore it, whatever their reason is. But also a number of vehicles that are running the traffic light at Toll Road. And it's very dangerous for those of us pulling out onto Toll Road or off of Toll Road onto Geiger Grade. And you get more homes, more people in a hurry, and I would really question the 56 trips per day out of a 56 home neighborhood. I myself, just running errands and stuff, working from home, I make a few trips a day myself. There's not only 56 cars that are going to come in and out of those neighborhoods. And I'm just concerned that with the narrow two-lane highway, this is only going to compound the safety issues we already have. Potential for even more flooding. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. Everybody's talked about it at great length. Overcrowding at the schools, also. Lack of effort and research by the developer seems to me to be a key point. Requested street names, 2 of the street names they've requested already exist. One is my street and one's right around the corner from me. So I really feel like this project has been rushed. They've tried to pull some things and trying to get annexed by the city to make smaller lot sizes. That's not going to fit with the nature of this neighborhood. And I just really want this to stay the way it is. I'm fifth generation Nevada, and this is my home state. It needs to be the place we all love. And I hope you guys will consider that this evening and in future plans with this to make it happen. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Degny, followed by Barbara Middleton.
Hi, my name's Karen Degny, and I live at 15150 Bailey Canyon Drive. I have now lakefront or riverfront property. It's a river. We've talked about a lot of the same things. People have gone over a lot of the same things. I have the same concerns. But I'm going to bring up some other things that I don't know have been addressed. One is, and this is really important to me, I'd like to know, it appears that the Comstock Estates HOA common area has been absorbed into this project, and I would like to know how that happened, or be corrected if I'm wrong. I do have a map showing that I can try and show, but that's a big concern, because I don't know how, if that happened, how that was done, and if it's legal. I'm a real estate broker, and I live and work in the area, and I'm very concerned about our loss of value of our homes that are already existing. We do have that more rural, open space, and we're going to lose our views. We're going to incur extra light and noise. I understand that progress has to happen, but does it have to be so much? Along with impacting the schools, the flooding diversion, that's completely changed our landscape behind our home. And I feel that if they try to direct that into a smaller area, it's going to go higher, and we will be flooded. We will be flooded. I think I'd like to bring up the possibility. Pinion, which is above Kivett, Kivett was our only exit. And there's a lot of houses back where we live off a toll. Kivett is not big enough to handle that if we have another problem. And so we can reach Pinion as well from Toll Road going back around. Right now, it is a rutted mess that the county does not maintain. They pay their taxes, but it's not maintained. So I would suggest that maybe Pinion be added as an additional route to get in and out of our area. We've talked a lot about the horses, but we haven't talked about the vehicle versus horses. And that's a concern too. I don't think the answer is removing the horses. There's too many of us that love them, and I think you're going to create another issue by trying to eliminate the horses. We've got 56 homes being proposed, and I can tell you there's a whole lot more than 56 families that are against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Barbara Middleton, followed by Ron Ellis.
Please state your name and address.
Hello, my name's Barbara Middleton. I live at 1440 Moon Lane. I have 2 points I want to hit. The first, I want to add my voice to the concerns about the existing infrastructure. Along with Toll Road being closed, when we were driving through Kivett, there were literally, streams of water running across the road on Kivett. So I don't think that that can be relied upon as an alternate route, at least as it stands. The second point I want to make is I'm concerned about developing the area south of Moon Lane. It was the small strip on the map, and I'm concerned about it for various reasons. One, it's in that designated flood area, and it's a very small strip of land, and the homes on the east side are more rural and very different than this development. And then also Moon Lane itself, west of the development, prior to the flooding, that road went all the way through, and people would drive through there regularly. So I'd like to know what the plans are for Moon Lane west of the development. And those are my concerns.
Thank you.
We have Ron Ellis, followed by Kathy Brandhorst.
Would you come forward, state your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Ron Ellis. My address is 1260 High Chaparral Drive. This development would be immediately behind my property, along with other properties. I believe there was a Mrs. O'Driscoll who wrote a letter in here. I share the same concerns, and a few others have not been addressed. This development is a really bad idea, and I'm going to tell you why. It's a bad idea because the land, as you saw, is floodland, it's scrubland. The second reason is we saw this kind of development come in Las Vegas, Nevada. We didn't say anything, and the development brought drugs, and it brought crime. And it brought lots of crime, and I haven't heard anything addressed about providing additional resources for the Washoe County Sheriff Department, additional resources for the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District. It's a California developer that's going to make a hell of a lot of money out of this, yet me and my neighbors are going to wind up having to pay for whatever school information is done. That being said, I'm going to read to you the email that I think I sent to all of you and the planner back on January 21st. It didn't make it into the packet or the supplemental packet. So I'm going to go on record with my email. I'm writing to offer my input regarding Bailey Creek Estates. I object to the development based on the following reasons. Number one, limited water resources. I think we talked about that. The elementary school, Washoe County may or may not actually build another school. The school district may or may not build one. They may add to one, but there is a Brown Elementary my children went to, and the traffic situation there is untenable. Flooding, I don't think I need to go into. These lovely people brought sufficient evidence of what's going on today. Whether or not it's marked in a floodplain is irrelevant. It's going to flood, and we're going into 7 years of wet. Geiger Grade's already a dangerous highway, and my property backs up to it. Not only is this development going to displace the wild horses, but they're going to be on the highway now because they're losing the scrubland that they would normally be on. There's going to be additional pollution from this. I read in the staff report that they're going to allow construction from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, or maybe it was 5 p.m. But, on my weekend when I can sleep in, I'm going to have to listen to construction. There's going to be construction dust. You know, and then finally, I'm going to address the wild horses, because really what happens is we get these city people that move into a semi-rural area, and then they find out that they hate the horses. And a lot of us love them. A lot of people out there don't belong there, they hate them. So, you know, if there's going to be some disclosures, disclose to them, by the way, you're buying in a floodplain and the horses are going to be on your front lawn grazing. So if you hate horses, don't move out here and don't complain about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We have Kathy Brandhorst, followed by Lonnie Edwards Dietrich.
Yes, would you come forward and state your name and address, please?
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm also the United States President. I just wanted to tell you, you know, when I came by, I saw the white picket fence, and it's being repaired. Also, there is a river flowing there on Riverside, the residential area. And I just wanted to let you know that when I came by, I was in shock because there was blood splattered on the gazebo. Stealing houses is one thing, but stealing another is another thing. You people have to really splatter blood. Now, a little Minnie Mouse was sitting in the chair, and she was kicked. She was just literally just kicked around with bullet holes. And she was screaming and screaming and screaming because she knew that there wasn't going to be a chance for her at all. Because somebody has entered the house and somebody has terrorized her. Somebody is wanting her dead because they need to steal this specific house. You don't know how bad it is to know that somebody has broken in and then pretend that they already moved in. Why are you doing this to other people, especially the owners? You can't be doing this to everybody in this city, but you are. You can't afford it, and you won't confess that you can't afford it, but you will do this to other people by spreading their blood all over their yard, all over their house, but you take it anyway, the way you want it.
Thank you.
We have Lonnie Edwards Dietrich, followed by Bruce Bacon.
Hello, Lonnie Edwards Dietrich, 15111 Kivett Lane. And I have so many notes, so where does this go? So you can see right there. Awesome, okay. Firstly, I wanted to point this out. Firstly, I'm a 47-year resident of Washoe County. I'm a third-generation native Nevadan, and my parents, or the property that abuts this property, which is one of 8 lots that directly abut this property, this proposed development. And I'm not in opposition. I'm thrilled to have it here. I would love to look at these upscale homes instead of the junk cars and the drug dealers that are directly on my side, the eastern side of this development. This right here is just representing in 1986, when the BLM disowned the wild horse and called them feral horses. They've always been feral horses. They never existed in this area when I was growing up here 47 years ago. They came from the Virginia City Highlands. They're feral horses. They've always been feral horses to me. And so I'll continue to stand by that. And then also, just in case everybody loves Wikipedia, I don't want to waste too much of my 3 minutes trying to center this, but everybody feel free to look at that definition on Wikipedia on a feral horse, and it specifically mentions these feral horses in Virginia Range. I just wanted to mention to the committee that I did just spend a week putting together this presentation that I sent to you just yesterday, and I apologize for that, the tardiness of that. It took me a long time to put it together. All of the issues that I have that directly abut this property are issued there. There's 4 key statements that I would love for you to address and really look at these very thoroughly, as they do concern the lots that are the 3 of the lots that are of the 8 of the lots. And then you can see nobody on Kivett has been up here saying anything, because I think most of the people on that side support this development. We're looking forward to having an upscale community on half-acre lots. So I would appreciate it if you would please, when you have a time, all of the 4 points that I have made directly relate to how my points relate to Southeast Truckee Meadows master plan and my concerns and how they do relate to that. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bruce Bacon.
Would you come forward, state your name and address, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bruce Bacon. I live at 1530 King Lane, and I have to agree with the lady that just spoke. Most people, I've been out there since '94, and we all knew that development was planned. It was an upgrade from a manufactured home subdivision, which I haven't seen one in Washoe County that's turned out worth a damn. So I'm all in favor of it. Another reason I don't want to see land grab by the city of Reno. I understand that most of the people that have spoken are in the subdivision that's directly, I'm not sure the direction, but on the other side of the creek. A lot of them are 2-story homes. I'd like them to consider that they're blocking someone's view behind them. And the other point that I'd like to bring out is I don't think Washoe County will ever improve Toll Road intersection without a subdivision like this coming in. And I would hope that that's adequately addressed. And one other point, my final point, is there's a lot of trespass on that land. It's mostly with off-road vehicles and motorbikes and motorcycles, and it's a tremendous nuisance. And I think the fact that we would have good quality housing there would cut that down. And oh gee, there's one other point, I can't really remember it, but I do think that it would be a great improvement to the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you.
No further public comment.
Okay, thank you. Sir, you want to come forward? You'll have to fill out a comment card after you speak.
Be very happy to do so. I thank you guys for your time, and I apologize
Could you,
for the procedure
could
to
you
which...
state your name and...
My name is Don Dolliver. I live at 1415 Charmy Way. I really think you guys did a great job of presenting your presentation, and I applaud you for your effort to control the flood, which we know we can't control the flood, only storm drain. The one thing that I'm most interested in is the traffic control. I think it's ludicrous that they put up 2-car garages and they're telling us 56 people are going to leave them. You have 7 high schoolers, right there alone is going to be 20 trips a day from them by themselves. Geiger Grade is a dangerous place. You should have a complete third turn lane coming and going before and after it to address the traffic issues that this project is going to present. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Comment card?
Katie, is that all of the public comment then? Yes. Okay, thank you. All right, then I'd ask if there are any commission questions, and this would be for staff, the applicant, or members of the public. Mr. Chesney?
For Mr. Smith, Dwayne? Do you know of any plan or any future plan for helping facilitate the drainage on Geiger Grade itself? Or I guess that would be an NDOT problem, wouldn't it?
Again, Dwayne Smith, Division Director of Engineering Capital Projects for Washoe County. I think that we could probably agendize something to come back and talk about flooding issues. Those are really outside the scope of the discussion for this tentative map process, but there has been historically some work that was done, and I'd be happy to come back and talk on a specific item with you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Pro.
I would like to address the applicant person who is from Silvercrest Homes.
Would you state your name and address again, please?
Sure. Just to clarify, you were talking about me, not the developer directly, correct?
Well, no, you said there was a representative here from Silvercrest Homes earlier.
Yes.
That's the person I'd like to address.
Please state your name and address.
Rich Balistreri, Sacramento, California.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate you coming up here. I am a realtor by profession, and I know that whenever people buy into homes that they, the underwriters require flood insurance where there's a flood zone. Will you be using B of A, Wells Fargo, whatever, or you can be using in-house financing? What's that agenda there?
Our primary lender is Wells Fargo, who won't underwrite in a flood zone. Most lenders won't, FHA won't. So this is not in a flood zone, so we don't have that issue.
Okay. The median, not the median, give me the parameters of what the homes are going to be going for.
Well, it's very preliminary, so I generally will refrain from answering that, but north of 400,000 safely.
Okay, so that's out of FHA guidelines for Washoe County, so FHA won't apply with.
But same would stand for conventional loans too.
Okay. If you're going to be using in-house financing, then there will be a disclosure to every potential homeowner that they may be required to purchase flood insurance in order to complete the deal. True?
Say that again, please.
Okay. You will, when a potential home buyer comes in and sits down with your lender and says, I want to purchase property A, that it will be disclosed that they are in a flood zone and that flood insurance could be required in order to fund the loan.
Well, I think I fundamentally disagree. I don't think we're in a flood zone.
We were just put up, a map was just put up there that you're in X.
It's a zone X. It's 100-year or better. That's the FHA guideline primarily for whether you need flood insurance or not, and we're in the zone X. So as far as maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I know, that's not a requirement for flood insurance.
Rich, let me also address it from a personal aspect. I bought down in that area one time, and the lender, B of A, said, oh, no, it's not required, and 18 months later, FEMA came back and said, oh, yes, it is, and they tried to force me into purchasing flood insurance, which was incredibly high. My concern for the public is that there is a disclosure by your underwriters that flood insurance may be required, not will be, may be required, so that there is a disclosure to the public to protect them. So it is their choice. That is my concern.
Okay, I think, first of all, go ahead.
Steve Molleth, I'm the attorney for the developer. We will disclose whatever we are required to disclose under any law, statute, or regulation, or ordinance, or otherwise, whether it be federal, state, or local, what we have to disclose to the buyers in escrow, for the Nevada Department of Real Estate, and all the other requirements out there. Now, he just doesn't know specifically what applies at this point in time, but I'm telling you, as a matter of law, we will disclose whatever we have to disclose and is required of us by every single state law, federal law, or local law. And that's pretty clear.
And additionally, we're very thorough on our disclosures. And as we vet it out more fully through the process, you can bet that everything that can be disclosed will be disclosed.
Okay, I'm making this a point of record because the commissioners up here have questioned the fact about flood insurance and a flood zone, and the public out here has shown us photographs of abnormal water. Granted, this one gentleman said that was the first time in 13 years. Sure, it can happen at any time, I understand that. But I just want to make sure that everybody goes in with their eyes wide open. In addition to that, with these feral horses, Nevada statute requires open range disclosures in real estate transactions. Will that be part of that also?
As I said before, there are a number of requirements that cover every single type of development or developer in this region. And those requirements are imposed by the Nevada Department of Real Estate. They're imposed by the state of Nevada and all the statutes that they've implemented. Washoe County, any of the FEMA regulations, any of the Corps of Engineer regulations, and any of the lending regulations that deal with banks or private lenders or anything. Those are a plethora of requirements that are imposed on this developer. We will comply with whatever those requirements are as a matter of law. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I can't tell you exactly today, nor can Rich tell you exactly what applies or doesn't apply. That is a process that goes through during the final map process, in the disclosures, and all the information that staff requires and the state requires to go from tentative to final map to get a recorded map. And thereafter, the process of building all the homes and the process of selling the homes, all those regulations come into place over that period of time. They will be complied with.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Okay.
I wanted to
And
hear
it's
that
a
they will
great question,
comply.
because that protects everybody in this room and protects everybody who wants to buy one of these properties. So
Well, a
we're
lot
on
of the
same team of
potential,
music.
a lot of the potential neighbors don't think that that would happen, and I wanted to get it on record so they could hear that. Okay?
Okay.
For your protection.
Right.
Okay.
And for their protection.
Yeah. All right. To the item of the wild horses, feral horses, stray horses.
So for us-
No, for the young lady, I can't remember your name. I'm sorry. Stacy, thank you.
Yeah, would you state your name and address?
Yeah, sorry.
That's
Short
okay.
memory comes with age.
Stacy Huggins Wood Rogers.
Thank you, Stacy.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of concern with the horses, as you heard by testimony here. Some want them to stay. Some are concerned that they'd be hit by cars with traffic. In simply redesignating a wild horse to a feral or stray horse seems a little unjust. And in the time that I've lived here, we've put Marines in prison for shooting wild horses. That's how important they are to us. Was there any thought about gathering them up and taking them out to the Wild Horse Project out in Palomino Valley to give them a safe place? Has any discussion been brought about that?
We have not had any discussion around that
Okay.
conversation.
I imagine they're more concerned about the safety versus them being in their backyard. If push came to shove, I would like to see some kind of discussion happen with being able to preserve their life, gathering them up and carting them out to Palomino Valley, as opposed to just letting them get hit by cars and killed.
Absolutely. I would mention, I believe that Kelly has reached out to the Department of Ag, who oversees these horses. So maybe she can, I don't know if you had any further conversation with them, but as they are the ones who are overseeing these horses, the conversations would need to include them.
Okay.
I think about how that can be.
I wanted that to be brought on record also, just because there's a concern about that.
And if I might, I sadly have a history with this. One of the last ladies who spoke actually nailed it on the head. The BLM, way back in the late 60s, early 70s, had actually taken an effort to remove wild horses from this area, specifically from the Virginia foothills area and the Virginia highlands. All wild horses, and there's actually a genetic tag with wild Mustangs. A lot of people don't realize that, but those wild Mustangs who are truly descended from Spanish horses and the conquistadors brought back when they settled in the southern part of the United States. That's the lineage of wild horses and wild Mustangs. When the BLM has cleared the Virginia highlands, Virginia foothills area, what was left was estrays, and those are actually feral horses. A lot of those were released by people living in the Virginia highlands area and became feral. And those populations have propagated over the years. You've probably been aware of a lot of public sentiment, controversy on both sides of the issue. It's a very sensitive issue, and you're going to find people on both sides, as you heard this evening. But the point is, those are classified as estray feral horses. They have certain protections, mainly for the property owner, who can be protected for the estrays in their areas. But I would point out that there's nothing in county code that would provide any basis for protection for estray or feral horses. So I would caution the commission against heading down that path with regards to this specific tentative subdivision map.
Okay, then maybe Mr. Webb can, if this could cause a traffic hazard where there might be loss of human life involved, I just can't imagine us having feral horses wandering around in now a proposed project with more traffic. Is there some provision or something that you're familiar with? I don't want to have an accident and have somebody's kid killed, or somebody going to work and they're killed or seriously injured.
I would, I mean, from the developer's perspective, we don't want to see that happen either.
Right.
So again, I think it's a conversation to have about how, it's a bigger conversation with Department of Ag, and unfortunately, we didn't hear back from them prior to tonight's meeting, but we don't want to see a tragedy happen either, on either way, either for the horses or for the public.
Right.
And
I would encourage a conversation with Department of Ag just for that sake. And again, I'm bringing it up for public record, okay? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other commission questions? Yes, Francine?
Yes, I think that, Dwayne, I have a question for you regarding, we've been talking about the floods, but traffic has been a big, major concern, and the safety issues, and all they're planning is one left-hand deceleration lane. Is that because currently it meets the level of standards for that area, and it doesn't warrant anything more at this time to do more improvements?
Again, for the record, Dwayne Smith. The traffic study that was submitted, while it wasn't required, gave some recommendations. But ultimately, what you're really asking is just as we see on a lot of connections to highways. 56 homes, the number of movements that Mr. Salegi has identified in that traffic report don't meet warrants for traffic signalization on Toll Road, or on Geiger Grade.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other commission questions? Yes, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stacy, and when you originally put the map up, and I'm looking at this one.
Uh-huh.
You gave you have the property boundaries where you have a two common areas and a detention area. And that other common area is not a part of this. Is it being shared as common area with the other development?
You're talking about the creek common area that one of the residents brought up. Yeah, and in fact, I appreciate you bringing that up because I wanted to talk about it. That common area is not being absorbed as part of our project. That common area was part of the 1994 original approval of the bigger project. Currently, the ownership of those parcels is still under Mr. Maddox's name. We're not encroaching into those with the exception of the one detention area. Detention areas are allowed in common areas in Washoe County. We do have to get his approval to do that, and those discussions have occurred. So we haven't absorbed that open space. We're not impacting it as far as taking it into our project. We are going to have a detention area within that area.
And then there was two other comments relating to, is this property, are you proposing annexation? Are you going to submit an annexation plan?
No. We have done a lot of research on this property. We did, several months ago, we looked at the opportunity to increase the density on this piece of property. And we came to a situation where that wasn't going to happen. So we did look at the opportunity to annex it into the city. Before we ever moved forward with that, there was a submittal made. We had a lot of discussion. That application was pulled. We never went to city council. The staff report was drafted but never finalized. So that request was pulled by us. We voluntarily pulled that because we decided we would rather build a project that met county codes to the density that was in the area plan and be consistent with the character of this neighborhood. So no, we're not going to annex to the city.
So on the record, I applaud you for staying within the county.
Thank you.
I think that's all, and then I do have staff questions.
Okay. Kelly, would you want to come forward? I think we have some staff questions.
And since you're the staff representative, but it's probably staff at large. A few months ago, we had a preliminary presentation on approved but not yet built. I see no reference in this submittal for approved but not yet built properties in the area.
Excuse me, thank you for the question, and I do apologize. I'm just looking back through the attachments
And there may not
in the
be,
staff
but
report. We should have had one in there, so I apologize if that was not provided. I'm just taking a look back through our exhibits. Please bear with me a moment. So Exhibit G, which should be at the very end of the packet, had a map of approved residential subdivisions in the vicinity of Toll Road. Was that what you're speaking of, or something different? Exhibit G, at the very end.
G is in George, D is in
G is
David.
in George,
Okay.
thank you.
It's the very last page.
so these are plans that have been approved but not yet built.
Correct.
Okay.
And I apologize, it might actually be approved, but not yet recorded, so not built.
And if we, in future plans, if that could be, as these are submitted, so we could have particular attention drawn to that, because I know it's a new thing that we're asking for. And so there's just Butch Cassidy and on Zalezi. Okay, so nothing directly close to this property.
And for the record, I might add that Mr. Giesinger, who prepared the map, actually, I had asked him to focus in on the east side of the highway, and when I realized there was nothing there, he expanded the scope to try and pull in those approved unbuilts that are out there that at least would show up.
So other than, and, I don't want to editorialize this so much here, but when you have these, is that you can, in the staff report, if there can be some verbiage to say how that was moved around. And then the other question I have is, and maybe this goes to you, Mr. Webb, in terms of many, many months ago, asking for a decision tree or a plan of action that says, so at the cab level, people knew as these plans were developed that could be presented to them is what the steps are for a, you remember now.
Actually, staff, Katie has actually been working on that and sent to me yesterday, or 2 days ago? It must have been yesterday, the actual flow chart for tentative parcel maps. I believe we had shared a couple of those with you.
Yes.
She's working through them as we get to them. It's not an easy process. It's slow. She does it as she has time available for other duties. Yes, that is a goal. We will get to it. And as we get, and actually working again on tentative parcel maps right now, because there's two processes involved. We will get those, and as we get those, I want you to all take a look at the entire packet, and then we'll release them to the public. So yes, we're working on it.
Because I just think that, you know, the community is not fully aware of all the steps that go into play. And all of these amazing citizens came here tonight to voice their concerns about a tentative map, and the decision we're making tonight is on a tentative map. And so then they have to come back and come back and come back. So if we see that flow chart, then they understand what's all involved.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I think now maybe Dwayne. And then I'll be done.
Okay.
Maybe. Do we have updated FEMA maps?
I'm sorry?
Do we have updated FEMA maps of this area? What are the dates of the maps that we are currently working with?
Again, for the record, Dwayne Smith, I did print out the FEMA map, the firm map off the website. This map was revised March 16, 2009. So that is the,
Okay.
the most recent.
Thank you
FEMA
very
map
much.
that I believe we have.
Any other commission questions? All right, seeing none, go ahead and close the public hearing. Bring it back to the commission for discussion. Do we have any discussion on this matter? Mr. Chesney, is there any discussion you have?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is a tentative map. This is the
Right.
beginning of a long, drawn-out process, and this is for the public's information also. So what occurs here tonight is the very first step in months and months and maybe even years of getting to a final map. And although I have sympathy for the wild horses and the flooding and all the other things that go on, the owner of this property still has a constitutional right to develop his own property. And I haven't made a final decision yet how I'm going to vote, whether I'll support it or not. But I think it behooves, at least from my standpoint, to let the public know that these sorts of developments, especially at this stage in the game, have so many steps to be addressed between now and the final map and the actual development that you'll have eons of time to give additional public input, and it'll also give the developer time to address these issues, and they will be addressed as they go through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Chesney. Any other discussion? Mr. Haran?
I think that one of the challenges that, I face as a commissioner, member of a board, is that we have to look at what our code says, what our experts, our engineers, our schools, our fire, our police, et cetera, have to say about the particular project. And although sometimes, as Commissioner Chesney says, you can be sympathetic to the horses, et cetera, but you have to comply with, we have the obligation to comply with the codes. And what I see here is, the application of being in line with what the codes require. And it's how I kind of look at it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Pro.
piggybacking on that and for the public, when a project is brought to us by staff and there is an outline of code, when it meets all those requirements, we look at those things specifically. We don't ignore the emotional impact on either side here of those who want the project and those who do not want the project. So each voice is equal, okay, when we listen to your arguments. So we have to come back to the code. We have to come back to, has the applicant made their case? Does it meet the requirements? If you don't like the way the code is and with the requirements, then take steps to change them. But we operate within the code. So I want you to know that. I don't think this project will be detrimental to the area from a financial standpoint to lowering property values. You know, any home that's starts at 400,000 and goes up can only bring up your property, so I don't think that'll be an issue. Certainly there are some things to work out, but under this tentative this change, I'll get the words out in a minute. I think it's okay that we go ahead and approve this, and it's going to get my support because I think that they have met the necessary requirements to take the next step. And certainly, as Commissioner Chesney said, there will be other things to look at here. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other commission discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Sarah.
And I just publicly want to applaud staff and the developers for recognition of the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan and the restrictions that you as citizens have developed to protect your area. The area plan is a very binding document. It's a very strong document, and as planning staff knows, I'm very vigilant on area plans. Bob is surprised. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other commission discussion? Okay, seeing none, I would call for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Mr. Chesney.
I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve the tentative subdivision map case number WTM 16-003 Bailey Creek Estates for Silvercrest Homes with the conditions of approval included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 10 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code, Section 110.608.25.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Chesney and a second by Commissioner Pro. Any discussion on the motion?
I would just only reiterate my previous comments of why I'm going to support the motion.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'd call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. All right, let's go to item 9C, abandonment case number AB 16-005, Havnier. And I'd ask Mr. Webb to identify the general nature of the proceeding.
Hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve the abandonment of a 4-foot wide strip of public right-of-way, 305.5 square feet, along the front, the southern, property line of 70 Sunbeam Lane. The staff planner is Eva Cross.
Okay. I'd call for any disclosures by commissioners, either as to ethics or ex parte communications. Okay. Seeing none, then I go ahead and open the public hearing. And I'd ask Eva Kraus to give the staff presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. Eva Kraus, planner with Washoe County, of course. This is an abandonment case for Mr. Havnier. It's 70 Sunbeam Lane. It's down in Washoe Valley. and it is a 1-acre property surrounded by other 1-acre properties. They're all about very similar sizes and developments. Next slide. Mr. Havnier is asking to abandon a 4-foot wide strip right-of-way on, in front of his property, which would bring his garage into conformance with the setbacks and make it a legalized property. Right now, it's an unfortunate situation. Mr. Havnier hired a contractor to build a garage. The garage, the plans submitted showed the garage meeting the setbacks. Staff questioned the plans because comparing it to the aerial photo, which I was the staff planner that reviewed the plans. Comparing the aerial photo to the site plan, I suspected it was not correct. Contacted the contractor, who was the contact on the building permit, and expressed my concerns, and he insisted that it was correct. He went ahead and got his building permit, built the garage, and when it came time to get the final and do the footing survey to verify that it made the setbacks, that could not be done. Contractor unfortunately was paid, and now there is a red tag on this garage because it has not been finalized because of the setback issues. So the applicant is trying to seek relief by requesting an abandonment of the right-of-way to add 4 more feet to his property and make it a full 30-foot setback. Next slide. Okay, so it went out to agency review. Planning has conditions of approval if it was approved. Engineering objects to abandoning public right-of-way. Public right-of-way is intended for public use, and there is a purpose for having it. And then Truckee Meadows Water Authority noted that there are utilities in the right-of-way, and they said whatever happens, they want to keep their utility easements. So anyhow, all the other reviewing agencies did not respond or had no comment. There has not been any public opposition to this because it's an abandonment and it only affects a small amount of the surrounding properties. Only, I believe, 4 notices were sent out, and it did not go to the CAB because it is a local issue. So right now, okay, I explained all this. It does not impact the surrounding property owners, and at first they had asked about having a variance done, and planning staff said they couldn't support a variance because it is self-induced hardship and not a hardship of the land. That's why they chose to go the abandonment route. Next slide. Okay, basically, there's only 3 findings for the abandonment. Master plan, the properties and the actions of the South Valley's master plan are not affected by this proposal. The existing easements, that public utility easements could be vacated, moved, or relocated, or an easement could be created over the property. That can be done. The only finding we could not make is that it is not a detriment to the public, because it is a public easement, and our engineering department does not feel that this is an appropriate use of an abandonment, or that it is, you have removed the public's ability to use this property. So therefore, recommendation is to deny. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Okay, any questions for Eva?
Oh, I also have Dwayne Smith here to talk for capital projects and engineering. Sorry.
Okay, any questions
Wait a
for
minute,
Eva?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chesney?
Eva, can you explain to me exactly how the abandonment or vacation results in material injury to the
That's why I
building?
have Dwayne Smith here to explain that, because that is the engineering department's point of view, and they're the ones that had recommended that this abandonment not be approved.
Mr. Smith, would you come forward, please state your name?
Again, good evening. For the record, Dwayne Smith. And in my role, I'm also the county engineer, so I'll be speaking from that position. And the reason that the Washoe County engineer is not recommending approval of abandonment is that rights-of-way are there for the public benefit. They contain easements, they contain property that has been set aside for the benefit of the public. And through that if we begin this process of abandoning public right-of-way for these types of situations, I believe that it is not good practice, and I believe that there is an alternative that the property owner could go through. So again, I'm here to answer any questions, but that is my statement for the record.
Thank you. Hold on a second. What do you think is something the property owner can do?
There are two processes, abandonment or variance. I'm opposed to abandonment. I don't know, I believe that Eva could probably step you through the planning part of the process to go to the next step, or council might be more appropriate for that, to answer that question, Commissioner.
Any other questions of staff? Yes, Sarah.
Thank you. So Eva, I believe, yes. So maybe in a condensed version, what could be how could this homeowner attain a variance to reduce the setback? Because you say site plan, you say there are a few solutions, none of which are easily achieved. So how do we go about correcting this for this homeowner?
Well, like I said, none of them are easily achieved. I do not see how planning staff could professionally make a recommendation for approval of a variance, because it is a self-induced hardship and not a hardship of the land. Knowing that neither staff nor this board has the final say on it. So that's the only thing I can say about that. The other correction that has, in my experience working with other agencies, is they've told people to tear down the addition. We hate to see that happen here, but that's one of the few other options.
So if Mr. Smith is saying that a variance may be possible, so I feel like I'm getting conflicting perspectives here.
If I might, what both Mr. Smith and Ms. Kraus are dancing around is the fact that any action by this planning commission or the Board of Adjustment and an action of variance are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. In this case, the county engineer is recommending, and this is a policy that's not just specific to this one case, because I believe you remember prior abandonment cases where Mr. Smith has been before you with his recommendation to not abandon any right-of-way. So this is not unique to this property with regards to the county engineer's stance. If this action was indeed, no matter what action this is, if it's a denial or approval, that can be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. What Ms. Kraus is saying is that, again, from staff's professional opinion, there is state law and county code would not support a finding that we could make, would support a variance request. And that's what was told to the applicant, which is why the applicant chose the abandonment. But if the applicant decides to go forward with the variance, in this case, if the Board of Adjustment decides to deny that, that's appealable. Again, it could be approved and also be appealable. And the Board of County Commissioners will be the ultimate deciding body on any appeal action.
Okay, any further questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, then I'd ask for the applicant presentation. Please state your name and address.
Derek Wilson with Rubicon Design Group on behalf of the property owner, Mr. Havner. And I believe we had a presentation material that we could bring up. Thank you for giving us a chance to present the situation. I think I start most of my presentations by saying this is a simple project, but obviously we're fighting a staff denial, so I'm not going to say that tonight. I should point out that I'm certainly sympathetic to engineering staff's policy-based position that they feel they need to protect existing right-of-ways. I'm going to try to go through some slides fairly quickly, and I think it will show that there really isn't much public interest in this. So we're happy to work with engineering staff, and I appreciate their interest in protecting the public. But in this case, I don't feel that that specifically this property provides any public benefit that we can't manage through another mechanism. I'm sorry, do I have a clicker to click through?
You don't,
Oh, okay. That's great for right now. Thank you. So the owner, Mr. Havnier, he's not a professional land developer. He's not a contractor. He hired someone to build a garage. I think he had a reasonable expectation that that professional would adhere to the rules. And that contractor took a plan to county staff, and it seemed approvable, and it seemed doable. Eva was right to, it turns out she was right to question the setbacks, but the contractor, in my opinion, took a shortcut in the field and put the thing in the wrong spot. And frankly, I don't see how Mr. Havnier would know that, being a non-professional. I live in my house and I look at my driveway now and I wonder, is it 20 feet long? I've never measured it. I don't know. I took the builder's word for it. So I'm going to go home and measure it one of these days, and I hope it all checks out. And that contractor has since disappeared. Mr. Havner can't get in touch with him. He's attempted to rectify it with him, and he can't find this guy. So Mr. Havner was quite surprised to get the red tag. If you could click ahead, please. That's a picture of the property. Mr. Havner's lived in the neighborhood for some time. He gets along well with the neighbors. They regard the garage, the addition that you see there as a benefit to the neighborhood. It's not detrimental, and it matches comparable installations in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. So we're asking to abandon a 4-foot strip of extra right-of-way that goes around his cul-de-sac bulb. So by getting rid of that strip of right-of-way, it would change his setback, it would make his garage legal. So what we're proposing is to protect the public interest by removing that right-of-way and replacing it with a public use easement. So all the functions of that right-of-way would be maintained, with the one exception of adding new street in there. And I'd propose that there's no likely scenario that would require additional street space in there. That street's never going to connect anywhere. So we're replacing those functions that the engineering department has, I think, rightly identified that could happen, utilities, snow storage, things like that. We're going to replace that with a public use easement. Next slide, please. And that's an exhibit of what we're proposing to abandon. Staff did modify our abandonment request, that we only abandon the section that's directly in front of the garage. That's fine with us. If that is easier to swallow for people, that's fine. We don't care how specifically, whether we abandon the whole crescent or just a bite out of it, whatever makes the garage legal is fine with us. Next slide, please. That's a graphic, again, showing the area that would be abandoned. Next slide, please. So again, engineering had a findings-based objection to this. Again, in this case, I think we can make the finding because the public would not be harmed by getting rid of this. We can maintain all those functions. And also, I would agree the variance process would be difficult for us. The wording of the variance language tends to refer to parcel shapes and topography, not to structures and right-of-way issues. Next slide, please. And that's a hypothetical extension of a street through the area. The parcel in yellow is Mr. Havner's parcel. You can see any street extension off of that cul-de-sac would go straight through a bunch of existing houses. So I just don't see that as plausible. I don't see the neighborhood wanting that or anyone needing it. I don't see the public needing that. And I think, one more point. I called a civil engineer friend who designs subdivisions now and said, do you currently put extra right-of-way on your neighborhood streets and your cul-de-sacs? And he said, no, that's not a current design. Adding that extra space is some sort of outdated design that doesn't really serve a function, and he doesn't see why you would include that in a completely built out and designed subdivision. So that extra road right-of-way area seems to be superfluous. So I think the neighborhood would function exactly the same if we abandoned that and replaced it with a public utility easement. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Wilson? Any questions for Mr. Wilson? Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. Okay, do we have any public comment, Katie?
We do. Kathy Brandhorst.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that her comments are pertinent to this applicant's stuff. Okay.
Right. Ms. Brandhorst, your comments have to be pertinent to this subject. This is not general public comment. This is specific to this item.
Yes.
Would you state your name and address, please?
My name is Kathy Brandhorst, and I'm still at the Donner Motel, and I am the United States President. Evictions, damages, no utilities, abandonment, bugs. You know, it sounds like that it needs to be rebuilt. And it also sounds like it needs to be condemned or tear it down. And I just wanted to tell you, most of the problems is evictions. They can damage it as much as they want to before leaving it. They can abandon the whole territory, and guess what's left? A broken house. It doesn't even exist anymore because they can put graffiti all over it, or they could just damage the floors or damage any part of the house just to get back at the part of evictions.
Thank you. Katie, any other public comment?
No further public comment.
Okay. Do we have any commission questions of staff, applicant, or members of the public?
I just point of clarification, and Eva just entered back into the room.
Yes, Eva, would you please come forward? We'll call back Eva Kraus.
My apologies.
No worries.
Sorry.
Yeah. I'd like the record to show that Commissioner Chesney has left the room.
Okay. Sorry.
So in your initial presentation, you said, and your recommendation for denial, the first two points in point one master plan and then no detriment, you said those findings could be found.
Correct.
So.
Well, no, no detriment was the one that we had the issue with. The master plan and the utilities are the ones that we.
Master plan and existing easements are
Right.
fine, so it was the no detriment, okay.
Right.
Okay, and then with Mr. Wilson's thing about a public easement on that land, is this something that can be, is that palatable?
That is palatable to planning staff, and that's actually why I ran upstairs. I forgot to get Exhibit D, just in case.
Okay.
But that, that's an issue of the Public Works concern with the easement.
Okay.
You-
Thank you for going up to get that. It's not easy running up those
Mr.
stairs.
Chesney has resumed his seat here at the table. Any further commission questions? Okay, seeing none, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And I'd ask the commission to, if there's any discussion, call for any discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Haran.
Piggybacking on my comments from the previous application, I mean, this is a case again where I think that, in the way I would look at it, that we need to follow the recommendations in the code, and, I don't see how I could support the approval of this, that there are other options available to the applicant and that they could pursue further up the line, that people who have less restrictions on how they look at things.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Pro.
I want to take the other side of that coin. I believe this is so minor, and that the applicant is going to use how do you describe it, a public utility easement or something like that, that's not going to disturb anything other than, this is so insignificant, I think, that I'm gonna step out here and say that I will vote in favor of this abandonment.
Okay, any other commission discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I feel that the applicant is more of a victim here than anything else. And I have to agree with the engineer that, you know, once you go down this road and start allowing these abandonments, it could become a slippery slope, but I believe that we also should have the ability to make an exception, and I would have to support allowing along with Greg, allowing this. I just don't see over this little chunk of real estate having this private individual that got taken by a contractor to go through all this expense and continued expense, and it just doesn't seem right. And so I'm gonna have to support approval of the motion. I think that's what I'm doing.
Okay, thank you. Any other commission discussion?
I'm going, Mr. Chairman, I'm going through my packet, and Ms. Krause referenced Exhibit D.
And we don't have D.
Exhibit D is not in your packet, that's why I went upstairs to make it. Exhibit D is the conditions of approval if you were going to approve this. Normally, we don't give you those conditions of approval if we're recommending denial. It tends to sway people and, you know, makes arguments and
Okay,
everything else.
okay.
But I can, actually, if you put up my presentation, I'll give a brief overrun of what condition Exhibit D contains. Just the last slide. Okay.
Now, we have closed the public hearing. Let me ask our attorney, is it all right if we reopen the public hearing?
I guess my question would be, you know, for what purpose? Because of the new conditions, or?
Well,
Just a reference to Exhibit D.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you could just do that without, you know, reopening the public hearing. I think you can just make a note on the record, Mr. Chair, that an Exhibit D with proposed conditions of approval has been provided to the commission. Copies of that are going to be made available as well at this point at the back of the room for any members of the public that wish to review them. And I think you can just go forward at this point without reopening the public portion of the hearing.
Okay, well, then we won't reopen the public hearing, but we will note, as our attorney stated, that we will go ahead and accept this as part of our record. So, is there more commission discussion? All right, seeing none, then I would call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Planning Commission approve with conditions submitted by staff as Exhibit D to this matter, abandonment case number AB 16-005, for Jerry Havenier, having made all three of the following findings in accordance with Washoe County Code 110, 806, 20. and I find all of those.
If I might, for the maker of the motion, the no detriment finding, if you could be specific how the no detriment finding could be made?
Well, it's more of opinion. When I look at the map, I don't see where that little bit of real estate is a detriment to the county in any way.
Do we all need to go through that? I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Pro and a second by Commissioner Chesney. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Haran.
I want to reiterate again, I think that, these things are arson. The lights, you can hardly see it.
I know.
I noticed that.
I'd like to reiterate again, although I'm very sympathetic to the case. I think that there are other avenues available, and that I, just cannot find it myself to be able to support it, and will vote against it.
Any other discussion on the
Mr.
motion?
Chairman?
Yes, Sarah.
I think that the owner's agent offered a viable alternative through a public easement, so that is why I can support the motion.
Any
I
other?
concur. No, I concur with what Sarah just said with the other option.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, then I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, so it would be 2 opposed and 4 in favor. So the motion carries.
One opposed. Oh, you opposed?
I'm opposing it also.
So if the record could show that Commissioner Barnes and Commissioner Haran were opposed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Should we do a roll call, or, okay.
Just because
Okay,
we
so
have
the-
6, so we had
So the
2
motion
opposed, we could
does-
probably do the math.
The motion does carry then. I thank you very much. Okay. Let's go. To item number 10, Chair and Commission items, future agenda items.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just
I got
going,
one, but I forgot what it was.
no, I just want to say on the record that I want to take Dwayne Smith up on his
Yeah.
floodplain
Yes.
discussions. I would like to know the floodplains within the county, the areas of unincorporated county that would, any of them, anywhere that would,
Stormwater mitigation.
stormwater mitigations, to help us with better
That was it.
understanding.
You got it.
Okay.
So if I might, just to make sure I clarify that, is it the floodplains, or is it general discussion about the recent flooding and how that impacted, or?
If I might, Francine, it was, Dwayne indicated that he would be willing to come talk to us about stormwater runoff and flood runoff and what the county's plan is for all of that. So he might be your go-to person, but he did offer to make that presentation.
And if I might, if it's okay with the commission, as you heard, we have the water resources
Yes.
staff coming back in March. Is it okay with the requester that we bump that till April?
Yes.
Okay, any other future agenda items?
No, but I need, this is not an agenda item, it's just some information. Is that okay at this moment?
Under
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I just need to let you and the rest of the commission know that I have put my home on the market, and I'm going to be moving to Tucson, Arizona. And I will give a written resignation to the commission once my home is in escrow. As you know, my wife died in 2015, and my grandchildren live in Tucson, and after a year of going through all the firsts that you go through, I find myself needing to be closer to my son and grandkids. So I just want to let you know that I've certainly been honored to serve here, and I'm just giving you a heads-up notice because once it's in escrow, you'll get something in writing from me, okay?
Thank you, yeah, and I want to say you've been a very good commission member, and we're certainly going to miss you, so, again, I think we can do something more formal at a future
Well, he hasn't resigned
meeting.
yet.
Yeah,
He's not
well,
given his resignation yet.
right,
He
right.
hasn't resigned yet.
Right, but when appropriate.
Well, when appropriate.
Don't kick him to the curb yet.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
kick me, throw me under the bus, that's fine.
All right. Okay. Any other future agenda items? All right, request for information from staff. Okay, directors and legal counsel's items, report on previous planning commission items.
Just one item, the Development Code Amendment on the cell towers in general rural residential up in Warm Springs had actually been pulled from the County Commission, the January 10th Board of County Commission agenda, and was rescheduled and will be heard for the first reading on February 14th and the second reading on February 28th. It was pulled due to concerns from the commissioner in that district, reflecting from a concern of a CAB member. Department staff has since then talked to both the CAB member and the commissioner, and now it's been scheduled for its first reading on the 14th. So hopefully that will move forward. I might also add that if you have Mr. Whitney's county email address, bwhitney@washoucounty.us, you can certainly email him with two questions, where and when.
Yes.
And you can talk to Commissioner Chivilicek about that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Webb. Mr. Edwards, do you have any legal information and updates?
I have nothing else for the night.
Okay, thank you. Katie, is there any general public comment?
There is. We have Kathy Brandhorst, followed by Lonnie Edwards Dietrich.
Ms. Brandhorst, would you come forward and state your name and address, please?
My name is Kathy Brandhorst. I'm also the United States President. I do live currently at the Donner Motel. And it's not a very good place to live, to tell you the truth, because we get a lot of bullet holes. We get a lot of people walking on the property. They're innocent people. And unfortunately, the death row will walk out of their rooms and put the bullet holes all over their bodies. I just wanted to tell you, we do have new managers, but these new managers are going through a lot more than what you can imagine. They have been shot. They have been shot right in the back because they do evictions at the motel, and you are thrown off the property if you do not pay your rent. And these people will come back with their machine guns, their shotguns, and their bombs, and their grenades, and their bows and arrows, and put the arrows right through innocent people who live in the rooms. And they are pronounced dead. But we are still trying to hold ourselves together at the Donner Motel, even though the U.S. military, David Gomes' platoon, is still needing help. And they still need a lot of help because David Gomes will put them into an ambush. And the ambush is really a crucial thing that you never want to see in your entire life. You don't know what these people have gone through. They even had a room at the Donner Motel thinking that they would, nothing would happen to them. Oh, that was a terrible, horrible thought, because it has happened to them, and they ended up in the cemetery anyway. And they are buried there. But I don't know if anybody's going to help us move out. There's only 6 of us left. And we do need your support to help us out of there as soon as possible. The manager, he told me he would give me back all my money because he says you are not safe here to live here at all. And I know that, and so does everybody else that pays rent. And I just wanted to let you know the blood and flesh above my ceiling is still there. And the bullet holes are still in the rooftop. I still have leaks from the rain.
Thank you.
Lonnie Edwards Dietrich.
Yes, would you please come forward, state your name and address?
Lonnie Edwards Dietrich, 15111 Kivett Lane. Just a couple of points I wanted to bring up earlier. Okay. Earlier this evening, there was mention of a petition. It was an online petition, and I watched the status of that very carefully, and I was very concerned that folks from California, Arizona, Sparks, was somehow so concerned about this little 56-lot development that was in my own backyard. And I decided to go to the assessor, and the reason I know where they're from is that they're not necessarily, didn't really say exactly where they lived, so I took the liberty of going to the assessor's webpage to see where some of these folks lived. And I was shocked that the majority of the folks that signed that petition, and they made such a big deal out of earlier, hundreds of people did not even live in this neighborhood. And I was very, very concerned about that. And I wanted to bring that up because I'm concerned that social media is going to take over what happens to us in our own backyard. And it never even occurred to me until this happened to me over the last few days. So I hope that all of those names did not hold too much weight, and I wanted to bring that up in case it did, that perhaps push back on that. Also, I wanted to mention that as I went through the Southeast Truckee Meadows master plan, which I've never looked at until this came up, I did notice that there's 2 emergency roads planned for that area that's supposed to lead out of Toll Road. I'm not quite sure that any of the folks that was concerned about this access even read the Southeast Truckee Meadows area plan, because I never had, like I said, either. So I'm just curious about what the status is on those emergency roads and where we can get information on if they're even on the plate. That plan was created and written in 2011. So we're like 5 years out. Thank you for carrying the motion for that poor gentleman. Oh my God, I own a few properties in here, and I know that could happen to pretty much anybody, so that was awesome. And I didn't even expect to comment on that. But, oh, the CAB meeting. The CAB meeting minutes did not even address the 4 points that I had addressed in my letter. And I was really concerned about that because they said that all I spoke of was flooding, and that was not an accurate statement. I did speak of flooding because that seemed to be the hot topic. So it was very disconcerting to me, and I wanted to voice my frustration with that as well. But again, thank you for your time, thank you for volunteering, and I appreciate you today a lot more than I did yesterday, I can tell you that. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. Katie, any other public comment?
No further public comment.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Hey, we're all in time here.
All in favor, say aye. All against, you get to stay.